Hill up kind of by one of the side. Yeah, well, it's going to be in that neck of the woods. You're going to run into. We're actually a bunch of us are riding to Niagara Falls in about 3 weeks. Supposed to come back like 30 years younger, right?
Drink that
not here, so I'm just filling in for her at this time. If we can all rise for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, liberty, and justice for all.
Roll.
Jennifer Ladd. Here. Roger Beely.
Here.
James Hebert.
Here.
Rick King.
Here.
Noah Perlet.
Here.
And Bennett Flanders.
Here.
All right, first order of business is the approval of the minutes from the May 20th, 2024 meeting. I'd entertain a motion to enter those into the record.
So moved.
Mr. Chair, prior to doing that, you need to elevate Noah to
Oh.
a voting member.
That's true. We only have, yeah, but I still can elevate. Yeah. And so due to the absence of Rachel Henderson, Noah, you're a voting member tonight. And that will give us plenty of votes to conduct business for the night. Thank you for that. All right, back to the approval of the minutes.
So
It-
moved.
James, Herbert. Do I have a second?
Second.
Jennifer, thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, do you want to call the roll, Doreen?
Jennifer Ladd.
Yes.
Roger Beely.
Yes.
James Hebert.
Yes.
Rick King.
Yes.
Noah Perlet.
Abstain, I wasn't here.
Next item for consideration is 4.01 Mitchell Hill Heights, 6th amended subdivision at 4 Martell Way. Eric, you want to give us a brief?
Sure, it should be fairly quick. Mr. Martell is seeking to amend the existing Mitchell Hill Heights subdivision, which would change a existing lot line between 4 Martell Way and 23 Fengler Road. The current line is a bit skewed and the proposal actually seeks to straighten out that line between 4 Martell and 23 Fengler. Since the two affected lots still meet the minimum required lot size and street frontage, staff is recommending approval of the subdivision amendment and offers no further comment. A draft motion of approval has been provided for the board's consideration. And with that, I turn it back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Eric. And for the applicant, any updates?
Nope. Good evening. My name is Matthew Orr, civil engineer with Sebago Technics. And as Eric briefly mentioned, yeah, we're just looking for an adjustment to lot 51 of the Mitchell Hill Heights subdivision, reducing, as it currently is a 2.26 acre lot, reducing it to 1.58 acres to be more in kind with the 5 lots that were approved in January of 2023 during the 4th amendment to this subdivision. There's nothing really else going on. Everything out there is private utilities as far as wells and septics. And this was an approved lot from the beginning of the subdivision.
Okay, thank you. This item is available for public comment. Anybody in the public or online wish to make a comment? Make yourself be known. No? Seeing none, I'm going to close public comment and just throw it to the board as this is pretty much just an academic move, so to speak, to clean things up. But if anybody has anything they want to bring up, now's the time. I see a lot of heads shaking no. Okay, then I am going to offer a motion. I move to approve the 6th amendment of the Mitchell Hill subdivision proposed by Christopher Martell as depicted in plan set prepared by Sebago Technics dated 5/20/24 with the following findings and conditions. Findings: the amendment constitutes the 6th amended subdivision of Mitchell Hill Heights. This includes revision of the lot line between lots 50 and 51 at 4 Martell Way and 23 Fengler Road. The planning board finds that the project meets the requirements of the subdivision and zoning ordinances, and there's no conditions with that. Conditions: all conditions from the January 9th, 2023 approval of the fourth amended subdivision and February 20th, 2024 fifth amended subdivision shall apply. Prior to the release of the signed subdivision plan for recording, the applicant shall update the plan set as discussed at the 6/17/2024 Planning Board meeting. This shall be reviewed by the Planning Department. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Roger. Any further discussions? Seeing none. Doreen, you want to take a roll?
Jennifer Led,
Yes.
Roger Bailey,
Yes.
James Hebert,
Yes.
Rick Manking,
Yes.
and Noah Perla.
Yes.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thanks.
Not much to do.
Yeah.
Next item, 4.02 Evergreen Credit Union Site Amendment. The Site Plan Amendment, 617 US Route 1. Eric, you want to give us an update on this one?
Sure. So Evergreen Credit Union has received approval from the owner of the adjacent lot to connect to Diner Drive. 4 parking spaces are affected and the minimum parking requirement is still met for the site. Staff's primary comments revolve around updating the plan notations to match previous approved plan details and replanting of 2 trees which will be affected by this additional access. A draft motion of approval has been provided for the board's consideration with these items in mind. And with that, I turn it back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Eric. And for the applicant?
Good afternoon, Paul Strowski, Civil Engineer, Sebago Technics. As Eric summarized, they have a easement with the abutter to connect to Diner Drive. Basically, it'd be a 900 square foot increase in impervious area that's being accommodated by a proposed Filterra unit, as well as an R-tank system for storing. The intent is as vehicles are wanting to leave and travel on Route 1 northbound, they will connect to Diner Drive, exit out on to the right and getting out to Broad Turn Road where they'll have access to the traffic signal. We do have some peer comments on the traffic. We're adding some additional signage again to indicate that circulation, some additional do not enter signs to maintain that circulation that was part of the original approval. And again, amending the site plans to show additional notations based upon the prior approval.
That it?
Yep.
Just a question for you, from me, and you're going to plant a couple of trees?
Correct. Yeah, there's 2 evergreens that are going to be removed. One of them is presently dead. And we're going to be kind of continuing the existing space, and that is on the El Rodeo side, about 12 feet on center. We're able to get kind of one just before the dumpster enclosure and then one just past, or their dumpster pad. And so those will be placed on the El Rodeo side.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Not yet. I'm gonna do that right now. Great. This item is open for public comment. Anybody wishing to make a comment, either online or in person? Nobody online, nobody running up to the podium here. All right, we'll close public comment. And I'm gonna turn it over to the board in no special order. As you recall, this is actually a project that looks really nice now. The removal of the old building is gone and a new footprint is there with a hammerhead. But I'll open it up to anybody. Roger.
Yeah, on the sign that's currently on Broad Turn Road, which is primarily about the diner, is there going to be any upgrade to include the credit union?
There was no discussions with the owners of El Rodeo about possibly putting signage there. It was more meant for ease of access out.
Okay.
I don't know for sure if they will want any sort of signage there. It's kind of a, if you know the area and you're familiar, you'll know how to get in there.
Okay. That's all. Thank you.
Jen?
I just want to commend the coordination that had to have happened in order for you to bring this to us tonight. I know that our Route 1 corridor is perhaps not like the best example of great access management currently, and that's for a whole bunch of different historical reasons. But I think in the small instances where we can have property owners working together in this way, it's a small step in the right direction. And I think it's going to improve circulation and access to this particular business, but also just sort of in general for the corridor and for the public. And so to those of you here tonight from your applicant team and the off chance that your neighbor is watching, I just wanted to make sure to extend a thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Jen. James?
Just one quick question for town on this. Do you need us to specify the quantity of trees, or is that all set up to you guys?
Trees that were removed, and so they'll have to put those back.
Okay. I'm fine, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Go ahead, Ben.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I just have one more question about, on the Haley Ward memo. First stormwater comment, mentions that there's currently a increase in the peak runoff flow rates. Do you have a plan to address that, or is that something easily addressed?
That one's easily addressed, possibly restricting down a little bit of the controls within the pond to possibly basically slow it down a little bit more. I don't foresee it being a major change or needing any sort of reductions.
Okay, thank you. I guess I'm satisfied, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thanks. Noah?
I have two minor questions. I think the first one is for the board and the second one is from the applicant. The first is, this I think was permitted before I joined the planning board. And my question is, did this permit pass before the EV ordinance came into?
I believe so.
Yes, this was originally approved in September of 2022, and the EV standards were adopted in January of 23.
Okay, and so would this change of parking then kick in the need to have to apply to the EV ordinance?
No, because it doesn't impact or alter 25% of the parking area to trigger the standards according to the zoning.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you. My second simple question for the applicant is just, you guys just opened, right?
Correct.
Why now?
So for those that may have been on the board or saw this project, early on, there was looking to get a full access easement or full access drive on Route 1. There was a request to restrict it down to right in, right out. Again, to maintain accessibility on northbound. There was a request from planning staff to approach the abutters on either side to try to get an access easement. Initially, the owner of the parcel Diner Drive is on was not interested. Mobile was. They found it financially restrictive, which was also brought back with the town. And they said, okay, we can go with the right in, right out. And then we made sure that the current right in, right out was designed to accommodate fire apparatus. We actually had several on-site meetings with fire staff to get that basically resolved. So if, heaven forbid, it maintained as a right in, right out, emergency vehicles could still access the parcel. Change in ownership now of that Diner Drive-in parcel. The current owner was agreeable to granting an access easement. So we're now here with it.
Right, great, thank you.
All set? Thank you. And I just want to piggyback on my colleague Jen. Do appreciate the back and forth that needed to happen to make that. And I think both of us at the time were on the board when that issue was there. And I'm pleased to see that there's been a resolution to that. So thank you. I have a draft motion. I move to approve the project titled Evergreen Credit Union, proposed by Evergreen Credit Union. The project is depicted in plan set prepared by Sebago Technics dated 5/20/24. The application is approved with the following findings, waivers, and conditions. Findings: the project will include connection to the site to Diner Drive. This will eliminate 4 existing parking spaces and require relocation of 2 existing trees. The planning board finds the project meets the requirements of the site plan review and zoning ordinances with the following conditions. Conditions, one, the applicant shall A, address comments in the staff memo dated 6/17/24. B, address comments in the Haley Ward memo dated 6/4/24. C, address comments in the traffic solution memo dated 5/23/24. And D, provide the final full plan set to the planning department. This shall include all site and civil plans, landscape plans, lighting plans, and architectural renderings and elevations. And E, pay all review fees and invoices. This shall be reviewed by the planning department. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by James. Any further discussions? Seeing none, Doreen, you want to take the roll?
Jennifer Lead,
Yes.
Roger Beely,
Yes.
James Hebert,
Yes.
Nick Mungking,
Yes.
and Noah Perla.
Yes.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good luck. Next subject is 4.03 Higgins Beach Market Site Plan at 82 Spurrick Road. Eric, you want to give us a brief?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chair. So Mr. Owens is currently seeking to replace and rebuild the existing Higgins Beach Market on Spurwink Road. The project's in the coastal mixed-use 1 character-based zoning district and was previously before the board as a sketch plan in March. At that meeting, the board requested further information on the plan regarding bike racks, which the applicant has now shown. Staff's primary comments revolve around the safety and clearly delineating the parking areas from Spurwink Road. The existing condition of stormwater runoff was also requested by Haley Ward as our civil peer engineer review team. So we do anticipate stormwater being a point of discussion as well. These items are outlined in the staff report with the applicant prepared to speak to those. And with that, I would turn it back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Eric. This item is open for public comment. Anybody wishing, please step up to the podium. Anybody online? Autumn? Well, we have an active crowd. Public comment is closed, and I'll turn this over to the board. Or no, for the applicant. Let's hear it from you. Sorry about that. Yeah, fill us in on all the good stuff you're doing.
Yeah, so Andy Kazuska, architect at Eider Investments. I have with me tonight Bill Garish, the engineer from Northeast Civil, as well as Chris Owens, the owner of the property, and John Have-You, contractor. So we've got a full contingent here to answer questions for you this evening. After our sketch plan meeting, we went to work detailing things a bit more according to your comments and come to you this evening with hopefully a good solution. You will see in the staff comments and the engineer comments, there are some additional items to be added to the drawings and such, but we're amenable to those and so are hoping to gain your approval this evening. I think, we can look through comments if you like. We do have a rendering sheet there. I have some samples of materials, that sort of thing, if you're interested in that. I think probably the biggest point that we would like to discuss this evening is the recommendation to include sidewalk along the frontage of the parking area. During this phase of the project. We are certainly planning on doing the curbing as has been requested. We're just questioning whether or not it makes sense to do that sidewalk work at this point in time when possibly what it connects to might not happen for 5 years or so, and then this sidewalk might be all frost-heaved and everything else by at that point. So there's a maybe hopefully a little discussion that we can have about that immediate requirement potentially. I don't know if there's maybe a bond situation or something of that sort that Chris could, kind of come back later once the sidewalk actually goes somewhere to put it in for you. But otherwise, I think we're pretty clean with what the comments are. Thank you.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Now I'll turn it over to the board and there's a lot of outstanding items that I think is worth some discussion. and the sidewalk is included in that. But first, let's start down on, Jen, do you mind taking this one?
Sure. I'll just pick up where you left off. I do actually think a sidewalk along this frontage with this project is beneficial, and I understand that that's, it can seem frustrating if it feels like that's not going anywhere, if it's not connecting into anything, but I will just reinforce at least what I know of, sort of other developments in this area, which is the town has just extended again sidewalk facility, so not adjacent to this property, but sort of two projects down the road, extending pedestrian infrastructure, you know, to an even greater distance, and this is the terminus of that. And then in the other direction, sorry, I'm directionally challenged here, headed towards Black Point Road, in this area, there's been some other, to the west, we'll say, southwest. There's been some other improvements made by another development that include another crossing and some trail work. And I think we'd all be amiss to not recognize just the huge amount of foot and bike and sort of non-car traffic that happens in this area, at which you are the epicenter this project is. And so, you know, I think we've worked on this board to try and work with applicants in a variety of parts of town, to help us build out this infrastructure as it's possible and as these projects come forward. But even aside from that, I think there's value in this short stretch just for your on-site operations, for people parking and getting around. You know, if someone was pulling in to this site and someone had parked sort of at the far left, this stretch of sidewalk would be an absolute viable option for them to get to the front of the store. And you know, it's not a huge, proportionally, it's not a huge, it's not like you have 1,000-foot frontage or anything like that. So that's just sort of my 2 cents on that. I think that along with this development, that makes sense. And it will help reinforce your redevelopment and, you know, position as kind of the heart of what's happening at this intersection, but sort of this neighborhood kind of overall. That's my primary comment.
Okay, yep, I hear you. Anything else? Okay. Roger?
Yeah, I'd like to just pick up that same discussion. On this site, there's a sidewalk, the town just put in a sidewalk to the east of this site.
Yes.
And there's a crosswalk going down towards Ocean Avenue. Now, I don't know if there's a sidewalk going from the Meadows. Is there a sidewalk on the ocean side on the ocean side? I'm asking anybody.
The crosswalk, the
I know the-
crosswalk certainly connects to Ocean Avenue and
Yeah.
runs out
Right,
as Eric's
understand.
indicating.
And
But-
that basically is serving Ocean Avenue to get over to the market.
Correct.
I'm wondering if I don't think there's a sidewalk on the west side of Ocean Avenue going down I don't believe there is one yet.
No, on either side of Spurwink, there are no sidewalks until you get down to the retirement community, I believe.
Right, and I'm thinking about the space. I mean, this is a very limited space you have here you're working with. And I'm just thinking where a future sidewalk may go. It seems to me it might be on the ocean side to accommodate those people who are walking from, you know, Piper Shores. I don't know. I mean,
What's on this side?
it's on the east side of Ocean Avenue.
I'm talking about Spurway. They're on.
I mean, yeah,
They're not-
yeah.
It's on the same side.
Yeah, I understand. but there's a crosswalk that goes across to Ocean Avenue. And I'm just thinking,
Roger Keating.
oh, what am I supposed to do? Oh, no, it's you?
Oh, wait, sorry.
Anyways, I'm not sure. I totally agree with Jen. Because I don't know where the future sidewalk may go. It may, I mean, if it stayed on the same side of the road, then it makes sense to continue it on there. But I'm also concerned about your limited space that you have there. So I guess I'll listen to other members of the board and see what they have to say about it.
Thank you.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay. James, you want to go?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I say, I guess, continue on with the sidewalk discussion. I would prefer to see a sidewalk here as part of this phase. While your team is mobilized on site, you're digging up the site. It's going to be more expensive and harder to execute later than if you did it now. Granted, Maine is one giant frost heave, and I empathize with that greatly. But the sidewalk connectivity will come. We need to include these now, not just for this project, but for all projects, I think, in the town of Scarborough, as there is a need and the desire for more connectivity, and we have that connectivity by adding it wherever we possibly can. Additionally, I'm thinking from a family standpoint, if I have two little kids and I'm parking on the far Plainview West side, families gathering after parking, that's a good spot for them just to go and stand at rather than having them run across the parking lot necessarily. So having a sidewalk there now, I would very much like to see here. And again, as Jen pointed out, it's not like we're asking for a half a mile stretch of it. It's just a small portion here. Other comments that I have, I am in agreement with all the listed outstanding items detailed by the town that need to be addressed. I'd like to see where the snow storage is going to be listed on site. The benches shown at the front of the building on plan. I'll specifically look to item number 13 for permits, lighting no greater than 0.05 foot candles at the residential boundary lines. Specify the fixtures with house side shields. It's just a cover that just goes on the back. And if there isn't a light fixture that you can specify with them, have them just custom fabricated by their electrical contractor. They're really inexpensive to do and can attach right to the pole.
Yeah, we do, in your packet, you do have a fixture specified. It's a dark sky. It's basically a sconce on the building.
Yep.
That's shielded horizontally.
Gotcha. Yeah, right. Understood. I got confused and I was thinking it was a pole mounted fixture back
No.
there. My bad.
No,
Thank you.
no.
I would look at potentially having the angle of the wall mounted fixture just sort of tilted downward a little bit, just so you don't have that sort of glare and higher foot candles at the back end of the property.
Mhm.
Because I'm seeing where the point 2 is. I know it's minor, and it probably wouldn't take much to just angle the fixture downward just a little bit, and that's a means and methods thing for your contractor to work out.
Yeah.
But that we'll want to see that modeled, and the people doing the modeling should be able to accommodate that.
Yeah, we are working, again, you have a model in your packet right now that
Yep.
does show a little bit too much along that backside. We're working with the lamp size and that sort of thing in locations in order to get that down to.
Yep. No, and I appreciate that. And the thing about LED lighting is that the perceived level of brightness with LEDs is much brighter than what is shown on a calculation. So if you do have angle it down a little bit, it may decrease the lighting levels in some other areas, but I believe that your perceived level of brightness would certainly be more than adequate for that rear space.
Yeah.
That's I like seeing the lighting shall be dimmed or turn off within 30 minutes of operating hours. The maintenance schedule will retain optimum light output and reduce heat retention. Dusting off with a clean, dry cloth is normally sufficient. Adding for an inspection or a maintenance plan to take care of these fixtures is good. I really appreciate that. And those are my only initial comments for now, Mr. Chairman.
If I could
Yes,
address
please.
the snow storage question, we've discussed that. So this is it's a seasonal market. So in general, it does not operate in the winter. So we've talked about maintaining that kind of employee access drive along the left side of the building, keeping that clear, however, for kind of fire access, emergency access. And where we would store the snow is kind of adjacent to the dumpster location there, probably in that last parking spot, kind of on that hill. So that's just enough so that the, fire services, emergency services can get in there and access the building if need be in those winter months.
Sure.
So,
That works. If it works for town, then that works for me.
okay.
Thank you.
That it? Noah?
Right. Thanks. You actually sort of preempted my first question was about, just to make sure I understand, this is going to continue as a seasonal business. The intention isn't to turn this into a year-round business.
No,
I
it
was
is
correct
not. Yeah,
about the snow storage.
we're not conditioning the building in any way. We have some ceiling fans.
Okay. Sounds good. And I saw some comments, maybe a little concern from the town about what plantings are gonna be here. Your drawings don't specify anything, but to me, they very clearly, your notes say very clearly that you're gonna be working on the list, the town's list, using
and-
native plants.
And
So-
we actually have a list added to the packet. I think Eric has it in here we can look at. So I've gone through the town list, specified some native plantings from that list, and that's what we're planning on doing.
Sounds
So
great.
He can share that with you, I'm sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
that sounds great. You're working with the town.
Yeah.
That's perfect. Finally, I asked you at the sketch plan about EV parking, and we sort of all agreed that it was a bad idea to have an EV charger, given how tight your spaces are leaving car there. Is the final outcome that you're going to be paying to the EV in lieu fee for the town? And if so, I hadn't seen that in the materials here.
I believe because of the small number of spaces, we're not required to provide EV parking. We're just required to provide it. I think amount of power in order to add that at some point in time, if that's my recollection. Is that
EV capable.
EV capable? And where that would be is likely in one of those 3 employee spaces, a spot on the building there. So that was the intention. And that's what we've talked to our electricians about, making sure there's a circuit to a point on the wall there, that could be added at some point.
But that's correct. That's the correct word.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, great. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ben?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is that right there, is that the parking map, those red dots parking? No,
Oh, that's the plan.
I didn't think so. Yeah, the employee parking is in back, right?
Yeah, so on the left plan left there, the red dots are various plantings.
Yep.
And the parkings are kind of head in towards those plants.
And the employee parking is 3 spots in the back.
Those 3
Okay.
spots kind of tucked in around the side there, correct?
Right, so I wanted to ask about those a little bit. Firstly, busy days in the summer, people are coming to and from. If the parking lot gets full, what do you have in place, or what is your plan to prevent people from parking in back? Are those gonna all be occupied by employees at all times? Are they gonna?
I would imagine, if you've been
People
by
get
there,
desperate.
it's packed full of employees.
Okay.
So I can't imagine it'll be available for a guest that could park back
Would
there.
I would suggest a sign as well, a very obvious sign, no public parking this way, do not enter kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then kind of related to the back, last time I believe Rachel had asked about a garbage truck and how it's going to access the dumpster, if it'll turn around or it'll back in, or do you have stacking out onto Spurwink Road with a garbage truck? Doesn't
Yeah.
sound like a great idea either,
Yeah, so their garbage service is outside of their operating hours, for one thing, so there's nobody there. I believe the trucks that service this property are front-loaded trucks, so they would basically pull in, dump the garbage, and then back out and drive through and exit at that point in time. So they wouldn't back onto the road, they'd back to the point where they could make that left turn through the
Okay.
one-way
and there's sufficient clearance for the truck to do that without going onto the road.
And
Okay.
Bill can speak to that. if needed.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I guess the intention is not eventually to have the sidewalk continue past, the market, right? All the way further down Spurwink?
We don't have plans right
Like long
now,
term?
but I could certainly see a point in time where it does connect.
I guess kind of what I'm worried about is with it being full, parking lot being full, people trying to find ways to park and parking on Spurwink on the side of the road. People do what they want to do, whether or not it's great. I don't know if we can figure out a way to how much clearance there might be for cars on the side of the road there, or how much we can prevent that from happening.
It is curbed.
Curb.
Yeah.
There is a 6-inch curb along Spurwink, so not that deters.
Certain
but-
people
Yeah,
doesn't deter them.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, that certainly happens now, but because it's just a paved full-length apron where I think people just kind of park. But I think we're gonna have more control with the curbing and everything, that's going to be, somebody will have to be a little more daring or I guess
Okay.
brash to do that.
All right. I guess that's really all that I need to bring up. I guess that's all I have for now, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Can I
Thanks.
can I ask one follow-up question to Vince?
Go ahead, Noah.
So presumably you have more than 3 employees at a time during peak summer. Where are the rest of them gonna park?
I mean, they're mostly teenagers, college kids, so there's bicycles and probably motorcycles and dropped off and.
There can't be now, so.
So I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Can you go up to the podium and just give your name and that way those in the virtual land can hear you?
I'm sorry, my name is Chris Owens. I'm the owner of Higgins Beach Market. I was just gonna make the comment that there are typically not more than 3 employee cars currently, so I don't anticipate we'd have a larger staff going forward.
Okay,
Thank you.
great. Thank you.
Yeah, and like I was saying, I mean, they're teenagers, so they're dropped off, they're on their bikes, they're whatever, so.
All the more reason to have a bike rack, right?
Yeah, there you go, yeah.
Roger, you had something else?
Yeah, on the, on Spurwink, when they repaved it, just finished it, did they go beyond, do you happen to know, did they go beyond Ocean Avenue or did they stop east of, say, where the store is? Do you happen to know?
I think the repaving goes to
On the other side of
to
Ocean?
the west of, or the Scarborough end of the property for certain, doesn't it? Yeah.
Well, the reason I mention that is because a few years ago, the town repaved the other end and they broadened the shoulders of Spurwink. So you could actually ride a bike or something, and you have a couple of feet at least. So that's the only point I wanted to make regarding the sidewalk, because if the town, when they recently repaved Spurwink, if they continued and they have shoulders there besides the sidewalk,
Mhm.
I'm pretty sure there's shoulders on the new portion.
Yeah.
Yeah, the shoulders, so a bicyclist can ride a bike. So those shoulders would continue right in front of the store.
On the other side. I guess
No, right in front of the store, right in front of the store. The shoulder would continue right in front of the store, I believe. Well, I'm thinking of in lieu of a sidewalk. That's,
Well, the sidewalks are required, so if they don't do the sidewalk, then they need to pay. So. that
Okay.
would be the
All right.
conversation. And
Okay.
At this point, it's such a minimal area, we requested that they be continued, so we're not going back later on trying to look at landscaping and hardscaping that they put in. It's a really,
okay, well, all right. And then the other thing I noticed in the parkings, in the existing parking spot, there's utility pole,
Yes.
which always has to be observed when you're trying to
Yeah,
move
so.
around. So it looks like you're relocating it, but it looks like you're only relocating it a few feet.
Yeah, so what the work that's being done there, we had right now the clearance is too low. So that's another thing you worry
Okay.
about when you're trying to drive around that pole. So we were in process with CMP and that work is going to happen, I think, within the next month or so. Is that correct?
Again, Chris Owens, owner of Higgins Beach Market. Yes, I spoke with CMP this morning. They need a dig safe permit, both, and that should take a couple weeks. And then, we've requested that they do not do this during July and August, but otherwise they would be ready to do so just because of the congestion in the parking lot currently. But
So-
they'll be ready this fall.
So the pole will essentially be in the same general area.
I can speak to. Yeah. Yeah, I can speak to that. So, so to get back to the clearance issue, so what CMP was already planning to do there, which will help with our clearance issue, is they're putting in a taller pole. So instead of a 40-foot pole, it's a 50-foot pole, which will lift that guy wire up, and they're relocating guy wire a little further back on the property. So that gets us plenty of clearance for fire and delivery truck
Okay, yeah.
under that guy wire. And then the pole will now be within that curbed area. It will no longer be something that you can drive into, because we'll actually have defined, parking and drive aisle areas.
Okay, again, just to go back to the sidewalks, I guess you're gonna pay for the sidewalks one way or the other, okay? So I personally, I would recommend paying in lieu of the sidewalks and just see how that works out,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Well, that would be a motion by the board.
Yeah, I understand, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, and as we all understand, I mean, we're providing sidewalk in front of the building itself on, the property itself, not the parking area. Well, we may be.
We'll see. Anybody else? You all said, all right, well, I guess I'll weigh in here. I do think it's prudent to do a sidewalk now versus guessing what's down the road. Got an opportunity to do it. You've got a fine looking building proposed, really looks good. I think it'll be a wonderful addition to that area, and certainly cleaning up the grounds and everything. It's just going to be marvelous improvement. So I'm on the bandwagon for having a sidewalk put in during all of this work to be done. And there is a lot of staff comments, but I know some of them have been addressed, and we do have a draft motion, but I wanted to make sure the board kind of get an idea here so we can give the applicant direction who feels like a sidewalk should go in during the course of construction. I'm seeing nods there. I think we have a general consensus that we'd like to see the sidewalks put in during the improvements of that parcel. And I don't have anything else. I think staff, you have worked well with staff and have addressed some of their concerns, and they have some outstanding items that we can include into a draft motion. I'm going to need your second page when the time comes. But without any further comments, I move to approve this project title Higgins Beach Market proposed by Chris Owens. The project is depicted in plan set prepared by Northeast Civil Solutions dated 5/13/24. The application is approved with the following findings, waivers, and conditions. Findings: the project will include relocation and reconstruction of the existing Higgins Beach Market at 82 Spurrick Road. The building will be replaced with a timber frame structure. The planning board finds the project meets the requirements of the site plan review and zoning ordinances with the following waivers and conditions. Waivers: 1, site plan review ordinance section 3A.3.f to provide a traffic study. The project does not increase trip generation. However, the application must still provide a trip analysis to confirm no traffic impact fees are required. Number 2, site plan review ordinance section 4B1A for 2 driveway entrances separated by less than the required 130 feet in a 35-mile-per-hour zone. 79 feet between the entrances is one way in and one way out is proposed. Number 3, site plan review ordinance section 4B1E to locate a driveway closer than 10 feet from the side property line. Waiver number 4, site plan review ordinance section 4D.2 to reduce the minimum required drive aisle width from 25 feet. The perpendicular spaces by the dumpster area proposed as employee parking are accessed by a 15-foot width. And number 5, site plan ordinance section 4D5A and 4E.10 require paved surfaces of parking to be separated from the building by 5 feet of landscaping and 5 feet of walkway. The size constraints of the site do not allow for the required landscaping. However, a walkway and timber curb are proposed to separate the building from the parking area. Condition: prior to the start of construction, the applicant shall schedule a pre-construction meeting. The meeting will include appropriate town staff, the developer, and their site contractor, and is to be coordinated through the planning department. The below must be addressed prior to the scheduling of the pre-construction meeting. A, address the staff comments dated 6/17/24. B, address comments by the Haley Ward memo dated 6/4/24. C, address comments in the traffic solution memo dated 6/4/24. Address the planning board's comments discussed at the 6/17/24 meeting. This includes update of the photometric plan to revise the angle of the wall fixtures downward. And 2, add employee parking only signage for the rear spaces. E, provide a final full plan set to the planning department. This shall include all site and civil plans, landscape plans, lighting plans, and architectural renderings and elevations. F, payment of all review fees and invoices. This shall be reviewed by the planning department. Prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall pay impact fees in amount to be determined. And 3, prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy, the applicant shall request an inspection by the planning department to ensure compliance with this planning board approval. That's the motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, James. Any final discussions? Doreen, you want to take a roll?
Jennifer Ladd,
Thanks.
Yes.
Roger Beely,
Yes.
James Hebert,
Yes.
Rick Meinking,
Yes.
and Noah Perla.
Yes.
Congratulations. We'll have a new market here in Scarborough.
Yeah, thank you very
Be
much.
fine. Congratulations. Thank you, board. Let's see. All right, ready to go, Eric? The next item for business is 4.04 Downtown Center Residential Modification to the 6th amended subdivision, Grist Mill Lane. Eric, you want to give us a brief?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So Crossroads has submitted the 7th amended Town Center Residential Subdivision. After meeting with staff, it's been determined that this doesn't really constitute a 7th amended. Rather, it's more of a construction modification to the existing 6th amended subdivision plan. The modification includes removal of a trail connecting the tiny homes on lot 35 on Cantor Way to Grist Mill Lane. Staff supports the removal of the trail as there is an existing connection to Grist Mill Lane from behind Pacer Way. And a draft motion has been provided for the board's consideration with this in mind. And with that, I turn it back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Eric. And for the applicant.
Good evening, Drew Gagnon with Coral Palmer representing Crossroad Holdings LLC. I plugged in my laptop. I hope that doesn't mess up the visual or the offline Zoom link. I had trouble connecting to it. So I'm just going to add a few different comments to the Eric's introduction here. So where we're talking about, and this is a master plan of Downs, it's in between what we've been calling phase 1 and Town Center Residential in this green area where where there's a blue circle right here. So it's just north. This plan is to the left is north on this plan. And that's the location of the trail we're talking about, requesting not installing essentially. Wanted to give a little bit of context for the overall master trails map on this, on the Downs property. So again, we're talking about the location by my hand right here. But everything in green is shown as either, I believe it is actually existing trails today, or proposed in the very near future under construction. So again, we're talking about removing this red line right here between Gristmill Lane, and this is the micro home development that's been occupied for a few months now. There are two significant areas that make it very, very challenging to install the trail. There's really steep grade that didn't quite show up on the survey when the trail was planned to be there, and there's a really small pinch point right here by the wetland. So essentially installing this trail right now would create a lot of environmental disturbance in the area. We thought we could fit this trail in between the wetland and this house lot. It's a very steep slope and it's just not physically possible. So unfortunately, we're not going to be able to install that. So that's why we're in front of the board here this evening. I wanted to point out the trail on the other location that Eric mentioned behind Pacer Way. This one is installed and there's a nice connection from just south on Gristmill here up through the project to Town Center Residential. And then I did want to note there is still a pedestrian connection along Downs Road with a sidewalk that connects to the two locations. So there's still two different ways that residents can access the northern part of the Downs from this project. And this kind of goes hand in hand a little bit with the next item on your agenda, but this location is in the first amended Town Center subdivision. This is the proposed lot 8, which is going to be an intermed facility. That'll be on your agenda in the near future. This red line is showing an alternative trail from the removal we're making. This would be, and again, this would go in conjunction with the next item as far as phasing purposes. This is just a temporary connection now until we would design this trail once that area would be developed later in the future. So I'm just going to back up here on this plan. That location is right here that we're proposing, basically as removing this portion that was planned based on site challenges. We're relocating it to this side. So this would connect up to the Innovation District Trail, which will exist shortly just about in this area. And that connects to a wide range of trails up in Innovation District and the Warren Woods Conservation Area. So appreciate the board hearing me on that this evening, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. This item is open for public comment. Anybody wishing to make a comment, please step up. Nobody here.
I don't have anyone online. Drew, would you mind unplugging so I can share my screen? I have a really simple exhibit that might help.
Sure.
Thank you.
I'm closing public comment and turning it over to Autumn. Whoa.
I was gonna show you something. So if you'd imagine a map, and the green line and red line. John, we lost. Did you just unplug?
I did unplug. Can
Sure.
I have a question, Drew. So you are proposing to take away this trail, but you are going to keep another trail of similar length, distance in another portion of the Downs. Is that correct?
correct.
Okay. I guess that was my concern here is if we're taking away trails, we want to make sure those are captured somewhere else on the site. Is the slope that was the issue, is that on the single family home side that the sloping issue occurs, or is it elsewhere?
No, that is one of the major issues. Essentially after construction of the single family home, and then based on the existing grade there too, it's very steep. It's like a 2-to-1 slope, which is just not constructible to be able to fit a trail on that. And any type of bridge or anything like that would have to go over the wetland in that area, and we don't want to have to go and impact further wetlands to add a trail when we can relocate it to a different portion of the property. And there's also multiple connection points in this area already. So that was the
Gotcha.
thinking behind that.
And the steepness is caused by like the elevation required for the homes?
Yeah, the home, and again, the homes are put in kind of after subdivision approval by the builders. So it's really just kind of a combination of the existing grade was pretty steep. And we thought originally we'd be able to fit it in next to it. And then the home went in and finished grade was kind of determined by the builder at that time and tied in, and it's just very steep. So.
Okay.
Hang on, and let's get Autumn back on since we've got it on.
Just a little bit zoomed in of what Drew was showing. So you have, this is the portion that it's going from the small tiny homes and over there to that single family home that's.
Put your mic on.
This is the portion that's being removed, this red.
Yep.
And I just wanted to show you this. It was just a little zoomed in, but this is the portion that
Yeah.
I mentioned that is the existing connection for this portion.
Okay.
And so this modification wouldn't require a new subdivision being recorded. It is a modification to the construction drawings, and so that's why we changed it.
Okay.
Pretty simple.
I guess the only, I just want to make sure that we capture this trail somewhere else in a future development of the downs in this area. Because I don't want to lose this linear feeder trail, because that was part of the original design and proposal of putting this in here. So I'm fine.
Thanks. Roger?
Thank you. I remember when we were having discussions about the Simplicity Court. Those are the tiny homes. And we were concerned about those residents having easy access to get out to either Downs Road or something like that. So now they would have to go either out to Front Runner and then take left to go down to the Downs Road, or if they went over to Pacer, they would have access to another trail.
Correct, yeah, they would have to go north to kind of exit the micro home site via a trail network. So it would really just eliminate that connection, but the trail that's shown on the screen in green at the top there is constructed and available. And that's, just a short walk up
Okay.
Pacer Way there.
But if they wanted to go to the new town center, they would basically have to go over Pacer and then over to Front Runner and take a left on Front Runner to get down to the Downs Road to get to, unless they want to continue on Front Runner.
Yeah, I think there's actually multiple ways to
Yeah.
get there between sidewalks and roadways to get to the town center. This trail really wouldn't have any impact on someone getting to the town center. It's on the north side of it, but yeah, there's multiple either access ways, sidewalks or trails to get to the town center from this area.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Anybody else? Go ahead. Ben?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just was wondering, maybe for the town, if we need, or if we should put it in as a condition that a similar trail be built elsewhere at a later point. I'm not sure if that's already required, or I know they're already saying they're gonna do that anyway, but I don't know if that needs to be written or not.
I think that you could, your next item on your agenda will capture it. If you approve it tonight or if you approve it in the future, but if it makes you more comfortable, we could certainly add that as a condition.
I mean, I'm not voting, but personally, that seems easy to me to do. I don't have a problem with that.
Hmm.
Everyone else doesn't.
Noah?
Hi, can you tell us the distance from the trail in green to the trail in red that you're proposing to remove? I don't see the scale on here.
Oh, you're saying from like if you were to go to one from the other, just that linear distance?
Yeah.
That's a good question. I don't have it off the top of my head, but if I had to kind of guesstimate here, I'd say it's probably 500 feet or so to go from one trailhead to the proposed other trailhead location. That would be along the curve of the roadway. Wouldn't be the direct connection.
Okay. So I'm gonna express my frustrations in the most politically correct way that I can about this. If I'm reading this right, what's happened is that the Downs has filled up land up to the borders of the wetlands, up to the very edge of it, and because of diverse ownership, has made a long planned trail more expensive to build. And now, because it's more expensive to build, because of the height of it, you'd rather not build it. That's what, if I'm like kind of fully reading your language in here. And I understand why that is and how that is. But I do have to just express my frustration in that I feel like there's been, at least my comments have repeatedly been about the walkability or the bikeability of the Downs. And it feels like it's constantly being whittled away, rather than the opposite direction of making it more and more and more accessible. And I appreciate that this is not the end of the world. And frankly, it's probably better for the wetland, given all the encroachment around it. But nevertheless, it still feels like planning could have avoided this amongst, through the building process of the homes, planning could have avoided this. And because the route was planned, right? The trail was planned. So I guess I'll leave it at that.
Thanks, Noah. Anybody else? Jen?
That was my first question, was why now? So why didn't we know earlier on in the subdivision process? Because because if I'm understanding the explanation sort of somewhat to Noah's point, the only thing that changed was kind of the full build out of the plan here, right? And that's why this is, you know, the impacts are too great at this point. Versus, you know, if that lot, I don't know. Anyway, so that was my first question, was what happened recently that now we're having to talk about eliminating this this link. And my sensitivity here actually is that, you know, I'm just thinking about the people that live in this sort of micro neighborhood, if you will, that would otherwise be served by this particular trail connection. If we remove that, and yes, there are other, you know, there are other links and other routes that they can take, but this would have undoubtedly been a shorter way for them to get to the town center, which I think, again, is that's kind of a theme that, you know, we've been hearing all along, and an intent, you know, and a kind of a guiding goal for a lot of this development. So one thing I'm curious about is if we eliminate this connection, how much longer is it going to take someone to walk to the same place? And also I'm not really clear on what would the impact actually look like. So understood there would be an impact to the wetlands, but what would that look like? I was very curious about Noah's comments on this, because I see that, I get it. Like, I see this as this is impacting kind of the middle of an otherwise somewhat large section of wetland. And so I feel a little sensitivity there. But, you know, there's other ways to do that too. Like, would a small bridge work? Could the section near the so curious if a small bridge could work for the area 1 that you identified as being a sensitive area, and then the area 2 where you had drawn attention to, missing it here, the steep slope. It looks like there's a group of other houses in that area, but with some other upland area in the back. And so I'm curious if maybe just a rerouting, could you just reroute around them in a way that moves this trail further from the sort of linear section of wetland that they would otherwise be adjacent to. And maybe then that creates a different undesirable impact somewhere else, but we're not really sure. So I kind of feel like the explanation here was these two areas are tricky for us. It would be expensive to build a retaining wall without, and the only other option that was presented was sort of relying on the existing trail network, which we are very, you know, it's great that those are in place, but I'm just not sure that that's like I'm not sure it's an equivalent alternative, if you can follow my my rationale. And I'm just thinking of that for the folks from that, you know, between those two areas. And, you know, if you can shorten someone, it doesn't, my guess is, again, at the scale that we're looking at, it doesn't look like it's that much longer, or not, you know, they can just go a different way. But if that walk would have been 5 minutes and now it's 10 minutes, I don't know, that seems notable to me. And so those are questions that I have. I'm not sure what the answers to them are, and I think that that would help. That would help my thoughts on this. But I do kind of feel pretty strongly about maintaining the trail network that is such an amenity to this overall, the full development that we've heard about all along. And I realize each of those little pieces are tricky in their own right, but I think that this board and your applicant team continues to try to work through those, and that we collectively agree that this network is really important. And so, yes, to just eliminate this little piece here, I just have some unanswered questions around that. And I'm not sure that I think it's a great idea at this point. So maybe with a little more information, or a different alternative, or a better understanding of what the actual environmental impacts would be. This many feet, this is what we would need for grading. It's this percentage of this otherwise sized, if it's 0.01% of the wetland area. I don't know, maybe that's a metric that we could talk about, but anyway, those are just some of my unanswered questions.
Yeah, if I could, I have a few.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. And I appreciate your comments. So one of the reasons and one of the challenges we have are this trail looks great on paper when we were putting in and designing it. And I think the existing conditions and contours around this area were kind of misleading to us as designers for this trail being able to work here. So what happened was 5 or 6 years ago when we did the phase 1 subdivision, we left the trailhead location here, kind of planning a crosswalk and saying, all right, this would be a good spot to connect to. And then subsequently to that, went through the permitting of town center residential, and then the house lots got developed, and it kind of all came at once. And we were like, well, we want this trail connection, and it can just kind of sneak in here. And then we went to construction. The answer is it really can't sneak in here. And in order to do really a trail connection there, you're really going to need to impact wetlands. We have a small permitted amount near area 1 on where you're referencing that was included in our state level permitting. We wouldn't be performing that. That was actually a bridge crossing a wetland. A bridge crossing a wetland still counts as still counts as an impact. So while it may be environmentally, you look at it, you're like, that makes a little more sense than a physical trail, a bridge still counts as an impact, and we'd have to permit that. And we don't think that that's really just appropriate as part of this exercise. So we have to go through an alternative analysis when we do wetland impacts, and it's tough for us to say we need this trail in here when there's trails located on either side of the dam. So that's kind of just one of the challenges, and I understand your comments. Just one of the challenges that we face when we're doing this. As far as the route to town center, I don't think actually anyone along Gristmill would be impacted in a total linear length more than 100 feet or so. To go up and use this trail that was here previously, you'd still have to kind of cut through the micro homes and going down Gristmill Lane and then over to Downs Road really doesn't appear to be, just from the eyeball test right here, much longer as far as getting and inconveniencing the residents that are there already. So that again, those are just 2 of the points I wanted to touch on real quick, but I do appreciate your comments.
Thanks. James, you wanted an additional comment?
To know on Jen's points, when you say it looks great on paper, to her point, this should have probably been determined not viable much earlier. Because what I want to see is I want to see what are the walking distances from this area and the estimated times of travel. When you say the eyeball test, to me, it's more of the looks great on paper comment. So I'd like to see this flushed out into something more solid that we can see. Like, does it add substantial amount of time? And if it doesn't, then I would be satisfied. One thing I do notice and I drive through the Downs pretty frequently, because I'm a construction nerd and I like to see everything going on, and so do my children. But one thing I see people walking all the time out there. They're walking their dogs, they're walking their kids, they're walking with each other, they're all over the place out there. And in this particularly dense neighborhood where all these families are, you're removing a trail that you initially proposed as part of this development. And you're relocating it elsewhere, significantly elsewhere, almost like towards the, if I'm not mistaken, towards more the invasion side. I guess I want to see what these environmental impacts are. You know, maybe there's an issue, maybe there's a possibility of using some of the reclaimed material from the demolition site to help support the construction of this bridge or whatever is needed in this environmental area. I don't know what the environmental impacts are. And like with the depth of knowledge that we have here on the board with regarding to the environmental impact, I'd like to see some more detailed analysis of what those actually are.
Thanks, James. Well, I guess I can weigh in here too. I value what Noah and, well, my colleagues have indicated here, and I had this thought before I got here. I don't have enough information to really say, okay, is that really justified to remove that? There's no photographs of elevations or anything. You came here looking for something, and I don't really think you provided enough information. And I'm hearing it from fellow board members that there just is too many questions that could possibly be answered to help us understand that this is a situation here. And oh, by the way, we can make up for that situation by doing something else. But we're not quite sure if we need to make up another alternative at this point. And so I'm hearing from the board that we'd like to have a little bit more information as to why this is a challenge. What does this extra impact mean from the permitting standpoint? And actually, I think having somewhat of a bridge or something is just another amenity sort of thing that makes the area even more attractive. And I think you're sensing where I'm going with this. I think we're not saying no, but at this point, I don't think you're going to get a yes out of us. Just hearing from the number of board members that would like to have additional information. So could you come back with a little bit more of the impacts, the cost, and maybe some photographs that would bring it to to a more personal level? Autumn?
Mr. Chair, there are a few photographs in the packet. Did you all receive those? So you can see, I just wanted to acknowledge that they did provide some,
Okay.
specifically, this is where the trailhead would connect. This is, I think, probably the really difficult part is because it's essentially in the front yard of this existing home. And then the wetlands are in this area. So this is the front part of it before it connects.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to give them a little bit more guidance. It sounds like you would like to know the specific distances of what's being removed and then what it's being replaced. And then maybe the wetland impact that would have to be if the trail was to remain in this location. Okay. And this has come up because of street acceptance request. So.
Or what the impact would be for an alternate alignment.
Okay.
I would
In the
be,
same
I would be
area.
interested in it also, yeah. In the, right,
Yep.
in the same
In the same
location,
location or general location.
in the other direction behind there.
I did not pick up on that picture right there.
So there's this is the wetland area. And so this is the area that I just showed you the picture of where that home is.
Yeah, I mean, that to jump in, sorry, that looks difficult to me too. And so I'm just curious, what kind of difficult are we talking about? Costs, impacts, and then is there another way to move that area to a different location where it doesn't conflict with the wetland right in that particular spot?
If I'm not out of place, I think the real wetland impact is in this area in between that you don't have the capabilities as of now to permit anything in?
Well, we actually, that's an already permitted area between the two areas.
Okay.
It's really area 1 and area 2 would be additional wetland impacts that as a result of building this trail.
So maybe for the next, you can show them the existing permitted and then what's not permitted, a little bit more specific, that might help.
Is the whole stretch, following the picture that you have here with the 3.5 feet? That looks like an alder wetland to me, if I'm seeing that correct. Is that correct? Is the whole stretch an alder wetland? Yep.
Rocky Risbera, 287 Black Point Road, represent the Downs. I have walked this whole trail because we've been dealing with this since last fall, trying to figure out how to make it fit. And I was out there with our team and it just doesn't fit. We're up against it on wetlands, so we can't impact any more wetlands. So it's not even like we could get a couple of feet. So that's a real pinch point. You know, the other pinch point is out at the road, and I think, you know, with some grading, we might be able to do something there. But we just felt like this trail wasn't super important in its location, and given the fact that we've got plenty of other trail we're building, we're gonna have 8 to 10 miles of trail in this project. I can't tell you how many we've already built. It's significant, and we're gonna continue that. And we just felt like this was at a pinch point. It doesn't seem to fit. I don't know why it doesn't fit, but, you know, when the landscape architect walked it, he thought it was gonna work. I can tell you, I've physically been there. It will not work. And so we felt like we could kind of just eliminate this piece. It doesn't add a lot of walking for anybody. Certainly people in the micro homes weren't going to use that to go to town center anyway. Somebody out of Gristmill maybe could have gone that way to get to town center, but they can also go 2 other ways. So we felt like it could be eliminated, and we've got plenty of other trail we'll be building at the Downs. But if you want more information, we'll see what we can get you for more information.
Okay, I think that's, oh, go ahead, Ben, sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to give a little bit of maybe support to what the applicant is saying, I walk this area frequently because I work nearby. And I can agree that it is not saving you a lot of walking time. I mean, it's 3 minutes tops, and it's gonna be for people who live only on one side of Gristmill where that trail would connect, that it makes a difference to it all. So it's probably 8 to 10 houses. I don't have a count of the houses that are there. People who live in those places are the only ones who would actually use to get to town center, and they can do a different walk to the sidewalk, which is probably 3 minutes further. I mean, it's not my job to promote the applicant's, you know, ideas per se, but I can testify that I personally walk that area quite a lot because I work right nearby there, and it's really not a very large distance. So personally, I think this makes sense to me, but that's my opinion. I'm not voting, so just throwing that out there. Thanks.
Well, your opinion does matter, and we appreciate that. Well, I guess I'll try a straw man here and see, given what we've heard and the additional context from both Ben and Rocky, can I get a sense of where people are at? Do we want them to come back with more details, cost and elevations and just more information so that we travel distance and what have you, so that you're comfortable?
I would like to see that, yes.
Question for Rocky is.
Hold on, I got a poll going here.
Yeah, well, this has to do with it.
It has to do with, you want more information or less information?
Well,
Go ahead, Roger.
Is it this is not time sensitive, is it? I mean, there's nothing urgent about this, is there?
I think we're just trying to get it behind us. It had to do with street acceptance. But we recognize that it wasn't going to fit, and we just wanted to get it right with the board.
Okay. My impression is that, and I tend to agree with Ben on this, that they'll come back with more information, but I think ultimately, you know, we'll tend to go with what we'll agree with what they're proposing. So
Okay.
if it's not time sensitive, then I would say do what you can provide us just to satisfy the board. But my own impression is that in the end, it's gonna be what's before us right now.
Okay. Where you
Yeah.
coming out, Jen?
I would like to see the additional information just so that I feel like we can make an informed decision on it. One way or the other. And so I thought Autumn did a good job at summarizing kind of the specifics of what information we collectively think would be helpful. And yeah, I don't, full disclosure, like maybe it really doesn't make sense, but I would just like to see the additional information to help us make that in an informed way.
In other words, the burden of the proof is on you folks. Noah?
Yeah, I'd like to, I agree with, James and Jen.
All right. I think I'm coming out there too. Let's just get it. I think it's important for us as a board to, if we have questions or we have some concerns, I think, again, working with the applicant and, the town staff working with you, just come back with, some of those unknowns that we have, distance, cost, impacts. And I think we can get where we need to go. And I think we can demonstrate that we're all working together to make the right choices here. All right? Thanks.
If I might add, I'll add you to the July planning board meeting, so you can take the next week, since today is the submittal date.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Now backtrack here. So, what are we on? 5? That was 4. Now we're on 5. So our next, let's see. Oh, we're doing well on time, gang. Hang in there. We can get through this. Next item is 4.05 Downs Town Center First Subdivision Amendment, the Downs Road. You want to give us a brief on that? Going to turn that over to Autumn.
Turn that on and share my screen. Well, Drew's got his on, so that's
Do you want me
okay. I just wanted to brief this. This is the First Amendment for the Downs Town Center, and it is to add lot 8 and lot 9. And lot 8 is the intermed lot, and lot 9 is the small lot for the pump station. And so there's a bit of timing for the Downs to get this through, for the pump station to get that underway. Intermed submitted today, and so they are moving forward with that site plan. When the Downs came to us and wanted to do this, Angela, the town engineer, and I sat down with them, and we wanted to bring in Scarborough Downs Road into this, because there's really no other subdivision around Scarborough Downs Road that we would see it. And so we've been going back and forth with the design of the actual road. It is constrained with wetlands on both sides. We've been before the Conservation Commission for ideas on how to deal with the road. We are at a point where I believe that staff and the applicants still need to have a few more meetings and iterations before we can bring to you a good compromise, what we usually try to work to for the board to see. And so in these conversations, we've come up with 2 conditions that I believe that we've added that gives staff the comfort that we need for the road to come back with the next amendment or any other future amendment that would be affected by Scarborough Downs Road. We've also put in a condition that we would have a performance guarantee in place before a CO. So before the CO for Intermed, we know we would have the design for the road. You all would have to approve it in the next iteration, but we would have that in place, and we would have the performance guarantee for the actual construction of it. And so that gave us a level of comfort for moving this amendment along. And so the waivers, there's only 1 in your notice of decision, and it has to do with the tangents between curves, but we've removed the other waivers that were specifically for the design of the street. And then we've added this lengthy conditions that really address our concerns about the road. We don't have too many concerns with the lots themselves. It's more about Scarborough Downs Road. And so just trying to work with the applicant to get to a point that worked for everyone. That's what we've proposed. And I'm sure Drew could add to that, but I just wanted to give you a little background. So why the motion doesn't necessarily match the staff comments.
Thank you, Autumn. For the applicant.
Drew Gagnon with Coral Palmer. Thank you, Autumn. That was well said, and that did kind of encapsulate what we're trying to do here with this amendment. So just to give a little bit more background, this phase 2 area is the shaded area in red right here. Higas Parkway is at the bottom of the screen. Payne Road's on the left-hand side. The blue dashed line is just the master plan approved area. And I've zoomed in here to what's currently in front of the board for approval this evening. So it's just the extension of Scarborough Downs Road for, I think it's about 800 feet or so, just until we get past Lot 9, which is this location right here. What Autumn was describing as the Downs Road future, I guess I'll call it, is the portion beyond the red here from where the pump station location would go and where the roundabout is constructed. So that's the area that we've removed from this application. Again, this application really all it does is it's extending the Scarborough Downs Road, and then it's creating another public road east-west. And what it's doing is it's creating Lot 8, so the intermed lot. And like I said, that's going in front, and that was submitted today to the town, so that should be on for the next planning board meeting. In addition, it creates Lot 9, which is the pump station lot. That was also submitted today for an advisory opinion through the board. So you will see that also at the next meeting. So again, what this subdivision framework is doing is just getting the infrastructure and creating legal lots for these 2 lots so we can start construction on it in anticipation of the significant end user. A little bit more background, the pump station really needs to be open by next summer in 2026. And with lead times and everything, we need to get going on the construction of it. So that's effectively why we've reduced the submission package, recognizing we have to work on the second portion of Downs Road, but it really doesn't apply to the infrastructure of this subdivision. So again, we included it the first time in the first application as a design only, and it was going to be constructed at a later date. We recognize that we have to satisfy many different stakeholders in that, and we're still really need to kind of come to consensus on the design, culverts, elevation of the roadway. It's just a lot of outstanding items, and it's a complicated issue. So we're reducing the scope of it to basically just what's in front of your screen here. There's still vehicular connection from the roundabout to this location. There'll be a temporary tie-in, so it's going to end almost essentially like the first phase does today, which is just going to tie into the existing down road temporarily. So there'll still be through connection with vehicles. That won't impact that at all. There was a comment last planning board meeting on construction access. It's going to be contained within the subdivision. So again, depending on what contractor will perform the work, it could come from Higas Parkway, it could come from Paved Road. Traffic will be maintained at all times, so we're not going to have any defined construction access route at this time. It's just going to be involved with the entire subdivision, kind of like how any other project would work off of major roadway. So that's the intention with that. And again, this trail alignment was, again, it kind of went with the previous application. So in this phase, in this subdivision application, we're providing the trail along the berm of the detention pond to right here. And the intermed site will take the trail a few more 100 feet up to this location for its, temporary use of the existing access road that's right here. And then, and that was in staff comments as well, a future phase, whenever this area planned north of Intermed would be designed and permitted, we would kind of integrate the trail at that time to what's going on there. So just wanted to show the kind of trail connection piece of this that's incorporated with the subdivision application. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Drew. This item is open for public comment. Anybody wishing to make a public comment? Do so now. We're done with public comment, and I'm not going to point out anybody in particular. Anybody wish to kick this one off? I mean, I think it's fairly concise here, and I understand what you're trying to do, and it seems appropriate for what's going on in the site. We'll see the pump station in a advisory.
Yes, it's an advisory review.
We don't have any, because there was one pump station. This is the second pump station, right?
Third, actually.
Third. Okay, because I don't think we've ever had an
Third time's a
advisory.
charm.
Third time's a charm. Okay, so
See it.
you got to do that now. Thank you, Autumn. That's all I wanted to say. Anybody else have any? Go ahead, Ben.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm glad we've pulled the road out of this for now, because I know there's a lot more to discuss there. The north side of, there was the other, maybe it was the other one you had up there. The other graphic you had. There's one, that one's probably the best one there. The boundary of the deed restricted area there, it's the dashed gray line. It now appears to be going further away from, if it's a vernal pool or a wetland area, the whole little hump there at the top. That, yeah, that hump. So there's currently an access road that goes straight through that, right?
Correct.
But that's gonna be fully removed and by the end of the project right?
Yeah, again,
road.
it's not in this application, so we're not proposing to do anything within this application. When we come forward with a future one on that side, we'd handle it at that time.
Okay. Was the deed restricted area always with that hump there on top?
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
I guess maybe I was, okay. I thought it was going right along the border. Maybe it was just the access road that is doing that. Okay, I guess in that case, I'm more clear on what's going on. Thanks.
Thanks, Ben. Anybody else? Go ahead, Jen.
I thought I understood what we were doing, and now I have questions. Did you say that the road was being considered with these lot changes, or was not being considered, and we're gonna see the road later?
So the shaded portion of Scarborough Downs Road it's considered, but it's conditioned with this, that we will see it later.
Okay,
So we'll have to bring it back with any amendment to the town center.
okay,
And if they don't have an amendment to the town center before Intermed gets ready to pull a CO, they will have to come and do it just for the road.
okay.
So there's a bit of a fail safe.
So there's no way out of it.
Thank you.
Right.
Okay, that's helpful. I thought it was good, and then Ben said something, and I was like, maybe I have it totally wrong. I'm curious why, what type of situation are you running into where the standard road depth can't be met?
That was on the second Downs Road phase that we removed from the submission. So that's no longer a waiver we're asking for at this point. This roadway that we're asking for as part of this application, this 900 feet or so that's on your screen,
Yeah.
is at town
Well,
standards,
hold on.
correct?
Okay.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. See, confused. Okay, and I think you answered my other questions, or I've just figured it out. Good. Thank you.
Thanks, Jen. James?
So again, also for my clarification, the, the standard of the road with the comments in the package that we received earlier with the standard for the aggregate sub base, this will be part of that discussion, not this one. Okay. Great. Then I guess I don't really have any comments here, other than I look forward to seeing the finalization of the road.
Thanks. Roger, you're all set? I think I'm all set as well. I already said mine. Noah, sorry.
Hi, thanks. This is very clear to me. I appreciate both your narrative and the town's narrative. Seems like you all have worked together well, and that's been very helpful for me to understand this. I did want to just ask a question. I think this is maybe for the town largely, and perhaps you want to comment as well. And that is in the town comments on page 2B, environmental related recommendations. The first bullet point there talks about the wildlife crossings, and they're very clearly described here. So I guess one question, the first is, it talks about the bottom. Is that bottom going to be a flat bottom or a curved bottom?
It would be an open bottom, but that comment is related to the second Downs Road phase that we've reduced off to.
I understand that. I understand that is, I know that this is part of the narrative. This is just in front of us, and I just want to make sure I understand. I understand the narrative that is this
Open natural bottom.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. And then I guess the second part of it, I would just like for you to clarify this, there's to me, a fairly important sentence here. While staff understands that this is not a new roadway, it should be noted the Army Corps may require a crossing up to every 50 feet for the new roadway. Therefore, one every 280 feet seems reasonable to request of the applicant in this situation. Could you just tell us about sort of like how that sentence came to be, I guess?
Sure. So when we had a meeting with the Conservation Commission, we looked at what the standards would be. And so if you were building a new road, essentially, they could be that frequent. And so during that conversation, the applicant was proposing two. And what came out of that is that we were recommending at least 5. And so those are the types of conversations that we need to continue to have. So please don't think that just because we have figured out a way for this to move forward, that these comments are lost. And I know that the applicant knows that as well. It's just, we need to continue to work through the process to figure out what can happen, but.
Okay, so 5 across 1,400 feet of road,
Mhm.
right? Okay, all right, awesome. And again, as you said, I understand that this is part of the narrative, but not about necessarily what's in front of us right now. All right, thank you.
Anybody else? We all done? Very well. I have a motion here. I move to approve the First Amendment of the Downs Town Center subdivision proposed by Crossroads Holding LLC and depicted in plan set prepared by M&R Holdings dated 5/20/24. Findings: the amendment constitutes the second phase of the Town Center subdivision at the Downs. Originally approved as a 7-lot subdivision by the Planning Board in June of 2023, this amendment includes addition of 2 lots, 8 and 9, with lot 8 being for a pump station. Provisions for an additional area to lot 3 and expansion of lot frontage on lot 2. The board finds the project meets the requirements of the subdivision ordinance, zoning ordinance, and approved Downs Center master plan with conditions below. Waivers. The applicant is requesting waiver related to the construction of the Downs Road, which is regulated by section 701 Town Street Acceptance Ordinance, section 5.d of the ordinance states, design standards herein shall be used for all road and street designs in the town unless otherwise agreed to and permitted in writing by the planning board. The requested waivers are for: number 1, the standard relating to the minimum tangent between curves of reverse alignment, which is required to be 150 feet on the Downs Road. The applicant is proposing 82.1 feet to provide a sharper centerline alignment in order to slow speeds down along Downs Road. Staff agrees with this assessment and recommends the board waive this standard. Conditions. Number 1, the design of the Scarborough Downs Road shown in the shaded portion on the plan shall be submitted and reviewed by the planning board at such time any amendment or addition to the town center subdivision is requested, as well as any amendments or additional subdivision applicants that will impact traffic on this stretch of the roadway. Number 2, a performance guaranteed for the approved design of the Scarborough Downs Road, shown in the shaded portion of the plan, shall be in place prior to the issuance of the first certificate of occupancy for any building constructed on the lot north of the intersection of Market Street and Scarborough Downs Road. This would include construction of Lot 2 or Lot 8 as identified in the First Amendment to the Town Center subdivision, as well as any newly proposed lots or reconfigurations of Lot 2 and Lot 8. This does not apply to the pump station plan for Lot 9. Number 3, a note shall be added to the subdivision plan identifying conditions number 1 and 2 above. A note is required to be added on the plan stating streets will not be publicly accepted until a loop connection is made to other public streets. This includes the acceptance of Town Road being connected between Market Street and the Innovation District roundabout as one street acceptance process once the Downs Road to the east of Market Street is accepted, or Market Street is accepted out to Haggis Parkway. This will assist in operation and maintenance efforts by the Public Works Department and provide better planning for winter operations. Number 5, note 11 on sheet C 205, access drive plan and profile sheet shall be modified to provide a clear understanding of the street acceptance process. In addition, such notation shall be added to the Downs Road plans profile or the overall subdivision plan. Number 6, a full plan set for the entire town center subdivision is required, including a phasing plan as well as a construction sequencing plan. Separate plan sets for individual amendments will not be accepted. Number 7, update the plan set to include the general location at all phases and responsible parties for all portions of the proposed trail. Include locations of the installation of barriers such as splint rail fence or boulders and provide proposed grading to accommodate the new trail. Number 8, all wetland areas must be shown on the plan as marked every 50 feet and signed every 100 feet to ensure no encroachment occurs in the field. Number 9, address all traffic review comments in memo dated June 3rd, 2024. The applicant must provide a performance guarantee in accordance with Section 9 of the Town of Scarborough subdivision ordinance and as noted in condition 2 above. Number 11, a pre-construction meeting scheduled through the planning department is required prior to the start of the construction activity. A pre-construction meeting will be scheduled once a full set of plans for the subdivision has been updated to include the conditions of approval, the subdivision amendment is recorded, and all fees are paid, and an approved performance guarantee amount is provided and inspection fees are paid. Number 12, payment of impact fees. Number 13, provide ability to serve documentation from the Portland Water District and Scarborough Sanitary District prior to the release of the signed subdivision plan. Number 14, the pump station proposed on Lot 9 will require advisory opinion by the planning board. This shall be reviewed by the planning department. Do I have a second?
I second.
Thank you, Noah. Doreen, you want to take the roll?
Jennifer Ladd,
Yes.
Roger Beely,
Yes.
James Hebert,
Yes.
Rick Minking,
Yes.
and Noah Phillips.
Yes.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Drew and Rocky. See, how many more items we got? 2 more? It's almost 8:15. We have 2 more items. You want to take a quick 5 now and then do those 2 items and call it a night? Seeing a lot of heads nodding. Let's do it. Let's go back at 20 after. Let me put that. All right. Action item 4.06, Venanove Holdings Site Plan, Center Street. Eric,
Thank you, Mr.
enlighten
Chair.
us.
So Ventinove is requesting site plan review and approval for a commercial building on lot 48 in the Innovation District at the Downs. The project was initially approved in 2021 and extended for an additional year. The town site plan review ordinance stipulates that if a project does not begin construction within a year or 2 years if it's extended, the overall approval lapses. The applicant is now seeking an approval for a smaller building, which is about 19,000 square feet. Staff has also provided comment regarding the shared parking easement area with the abutting lot owned by Zoom Drain. We do recommend that that area not be able to be used until Zoom Drain, the owner of the abutting lot, is able to update their site plan to match what Ventinove is showing. The applicant has updated their site plan for further staff review comments and I believe is prepared to speak to the parking and access items identified. So with that, I turn it back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Eric. And for the applicant?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Nancy St. Clair. I'm with St. Clair Associates. I have a few folks here with me tonight. Behind me is Keith Smith, our project landscape architect. Keith is going to do a bit of a discussion sort of in the middle of our presentation tonight. Behind you is my husband, David, who's at the computer and will be hopefully showing you the color rendering that's on the easel here. And we have the applicant, Sam Marciso, representing Ventinove Holdings LLC. For those of you who were on the board a number of years ago, this is a site that did, as Eric noted, did receive a site plan approval for a slightly larger building. It was an L-shaped building on this piece of property. This site is known as Lot 48. It has an address of 30 Center Street, but in the original Innovation District design, this was actually 2 lots that got consolidated into one as part of the original site plan approval in 2021, almost 3 years ago. So the site has frontage on Center Street. It also has frontage on Immersion Drive, which is on the easterly side of the site, which is one of those shared private access easements that provides access to lots in the Innovation District. Center Street is a public street in the Innovation District. So we're here tonight to seek site plan approval. As Eric noted, the original plan that was approved on the site was extended for 1 year, but that approval unfortunately lapsed last July. And so in the time frame from the original approval to now, the applicant originally had envisioned that that L-shaped building would have multiple tenants in the building and was a building that had been anticipated to almost be a spec building, if you will. Unfortunately, during that time frame, there really wasn't any tenant that moved forward that would be an appropriate use or uses within that building. And about a year ago, the applicant had identified a prospective tenant for the building, which would occupy the entire building. As a result, the building shape got a little bit different. The building got smaller. The parking got changed based on the site needs for the operation within the building. We were scheduled to present to you folks back in February of this year, and the applicant requested to be tabled. The lease negotiations were underway at that point, and we're happy to note that those lease agreements have been finalized. So we do have a tenant for the building, and would like to present to you folks tonight the program for how that building functions, both internally and externally on the site, and what the key site elements are associated with that. I'm going to take a little bit of a step back, though, because I wanted to show you in comparison what this building looks like compared to the previously approved site plan. So David's going to switch it. Do you have it up there? Colored up portion of that image is the site plan. The building in brown is the proposed building. There's an outline that's sort of an L shape. David, do you have that up there? I'm sorry, I just had eye surgery, so I can't see. There it is, I see it. So the yellow outline is the originally approved building. It was an L shape. So the easterly side of the building was quite a bit larger, projected down south of the south wall of the building. The dock appendage that's shown on the building was exactly the same as it was in the previously approved plan. There was a connection on the previously approved plan. That's that green line that comes down. There you go. The green line that comes down and connects to the Zoom drain site. As Eric had mentioned, there is an easement that is provided as part of this program to benefit Zoom Drain. The applicant is affiliated with Zoom Drain, and with that easement area, that would allow additional parking for Zoom Drain. In the prior plan, there was a physical driveway connection between the two. That is not proposed on this plan. It is simply an easement area to allow Zoom Drain to expand parking. If you've been out there recently, you may see that there's some Zoom Drain trucks actually on this site. So they need to have that additional parking, and that will allow that to happen. We fully understand that that will require an amended site plan for Zoom Drain. And we certainly would be coming to you folks with that so that that could happen. For this particular site, all that we're proposing is the easement area. Our accommodations for stormwater calculations for impervious cover do include the provisions for that additional paving that would be on this lot that would benefit the Zoom Drain site. So that has been accommodated in our calculations. So I'm going to switch back to the site plan for a minute. So as you can see, the building is generally rectangular with the exception of the dock appendage on the north side of the building. Functionally, the westerly side of the building, or the side that's closest to Center Street, is the office area for the building. It does have a second-story component, which would have some finished space and some mezzanine storage space in that. The remainder of the building is a combination of a warehouse area as well as an area that would be used for the preparation, loading, and access for the vehicles that would be used by this tenant on the job, on different job sites that are throughout the area. So we have three basic functions that are happening in this building. We have the office component. There would be staff that are available and on the site throughout the entire day. On the southerly side of the building, there are 6 at-grade overhead doors, which would allow for loading of materials and supplies, excuse me, into fleet vehicles that would go to various job sites that the tenant would be working on throughout the entire area. There are also 3 overhead doors on the east side of the site. Those would be for larger equipment and materials for larger vehicles that may go to larger job sites. On the north side of the building is the receiving area for the warehouse, where trailer trucks would come in and bring in the supplies and materials that would be within the building and then be able to be distributed for use throughout the business operations of the site. So functionally, we have a lot of things that are going on internally within the building. And in order to safely accommodate those things and to address appropriate maneuvering throughout the site, we've maintained a circulation around the building on 3 sides. The side on Center Street, we've maintained a large expanse of green space so that we do have that nice street presence on Center Street, allows for some nice opportunity for the folks who are in the office to have space out there. So these are building foundations that have been prepared for the site. They're in your packet. So the upper view in the upper left corner is the view from Center Street. So you'll see that 2-story section. The area where there's a lot of glazing and the nice canopy is the office area of the building. In the upper right corner, the rendering shows what would be the easterly elevation of the building, or what it would look like from Immersion Drive. The 3 overhead doors are a little bit bigger. There is a canopy that covers those doors for access for loading of vehicles that would go to project sites. In the lower left corner of your rendering, that is again a different view of the east and the north sides of the building as seen from the entrance from Immersion Drive. That shows that dock appendage. You see it's a little bit lower height on the roof elevation. And then again, those three doors on the east side of the building. And in the lower right corner, we have the bird's eye view of the building, which shows a nice view of the south elevation where we have those 6 at-grade doors, which would be used for staff to load and prepare the smaller fleet vehicles for dispersion out to their project sites, their work sites. So I have a little bit of information that I wanted to discuss with you on the site before I turn it over to Keith. And then after Keith's presentation, we'll talk a little bit about the 4 waiver requests that we have placed in our application materials. So the original building, as I mentioned, was quite a bit bigger. That originally approved site plan had a 27,940 square foot building. That was the L-shaped building. The new building is 19,280 square feet in footprint, so it's smaller. We do have more parking, but we do also have about 1.5% greater green space on the site. We have a little bit of a reduction in the impervious cover with this plan compared to the previously approved plan. So as I mentioned, the west end of the building is primarily where the office area is. We've allocated parking for those staff who would be at the site throughout the day in that southwest side of the property. That's where we envision most of the office staff and those who are at the building throughout the day would be. Those 6 overhead doors would be used during the morning hours. A couple of shifts probably would be coming through in using those doors. A truck would back up to them. It's at grade. There's a canopy over them. And equipment and supplies for the daily activities would be loaded into those trucks, and the staff members, along with their technicians and helpers, would be traveling out to various job sites to provide the installation, repairs, et cetera, for the facilities. On the easterly side of the site, or if you're looking at the plan that's on the right side, those 3 overhead doors, as I mentioned, are a little bit bigger. They're for a little bit bigger vehicles and an opportunity to load equipment and supplies in that might be a little bit larger than the typical ones that would come in and out through the 6 overhead doors on the south side. And again, on the north end, we have 2 docks. One faces east and one faces west. And for those of you who remember the review that we did back a few years ago on this particular site, the way that those docks function is that a truck that would use the easterly facing dock, or the dock that would be closest to Immersion Drive, would enter the site on the north side from Center Street, drive past the dock, back into the dock within the site, and then be allowed to continue in a drive-through fashion out onto Immersion Drive. Just the reverse would occur on the westerly facing dock, where vehicles would come in off of Immersion Drive, access the dock, and then exit the site onto Center Street. The southerly access of Center Street would be primarily envisioned for vehicles that would be for employees. So we're talking passenger vehicles. We're talking about the smaller fleet vehicles that would come in and out and use that access. The southerly side of the building is the primary pedestrian activity area on the building site. That's where you're going to see technicians loading the trucks. You're going to see people coming in and out. You're going to see employees entering and exiting the office space. So what we have tried to do with this program is to keep the truck traffic, the larger truck traffic on the north side of the site. They do not have to make any complete turns outside of the site. They can all basically drive through and exit on both ends of the property. So those functions are key to making sure that internally the building operates as planned. We spent actually a fair amount of time with a prospective tenant going over their specific needs, what their programs were, what their operational activities are throughout the day, making sure that both internally and externally on the site that the program works for the tenant. And as I mentioned, they are on board and we're looking forward to having them come to the community. So I am going to turn it to Keith to talk a little bit about the land. Oh, I'm sorry, Keith, one more thing. As Eric had mentioned, there was a couple of staff comments that were received back when the memo came out. They were with regard to the 2 parking spaces that were closest to Center Street. And the concern was that they were too close to Center Street and they weren't really functioning well. As we talked to staff at the time, we had proposed and have removed those 2 spaces that are closest to Center Street. And they've actually been placed up on the northeast corner, if you will, near the Immersion Drive entrance. So they were just shifted to another location on the site. In addition, there was a comment we had 1 parking space on the north corner of the northwest corner of the building. There was a parallel parking space, and that has been eliminated. So we are proposing 69 parking spaces. The ordinance requirements for this site, size of building and type of use are 68. So we do have 1 space in addition, but again, that's for the operational needs of the site as well. So now I'm going to turn it to Keith.
Good evening, Keith Smith Landscape Architecture. So I was involved with this project with its original approval and have kind of maintained the landscaping in a similar fashion, trying to make it contiguous with the adjacent sites. I did need to, based on the landscape requirements, make some updates to the planting lists to change to some more native plants that were used previously. As you can see in the plan, I'm showing the street trees, I'm showing the adjacent site trees and how this site, I'm adding street trees on the sides that aren't currently buffered and adding buffering along Immersion Drive, some ornamental trees in the front of the building, foundation planting between walkways and the building, and some buffering on the service drive side with some larger shrubs that's going to provide some ultimate buffering between that and the further side. Additionally, there were some lighting comments. The lighting narrative, I'll put up lighting. So the lighting plan, there wasn't a lighting narrative associated with that. And I just wanted to kind of just talk to you that. There's 5 fixtures used on site. The intention is, just meeting the minimum standards. There wasn't a standard stated, and that is meeting the IES RP 822 standard, which was a minimum of 0.2 foot candles, and the max to min is a 20-to-1 ratio. And this site does that. The lighting plan that's up on the thing, I have a little chart in the lower corner, the lowest one to the right, which shows its compliance. And just from a lighting perspective, there's a few pole lights on site. A lot of the lighting is on the building, underneath the canopies at the doors. There's lighting that will come down. There's a couple pack lights on each side, both north and south, that are going to supplement some of the pole lighting just to make sure that we get coverage. We do maintain a 0.1 at the property lines, and I think it'll look good. One of the other, can you do the elevations? One of the other requests was for the building elevations to show where the lighting was proposed on the building. And when that comes up, so I took the architecturals and showed, I just wanted to make sure you guys could see that it was integrated. We tried to find locations for those lights that tied in with the architecture and fit in with the fenestration and the windows. So the red dots that you see are where the lighting locations would be. And where there's doors, those are above the canopies. So those are going to be straight down lights. They're all full cutoff, dark sky compliant. So that's pretty simple. Thank you.
So as we noted in our application materials and was noted in the staff review comments, we are asking for 4 waivers on the site. Those waivers were the exact same waivers that we sought as part of the original previous approval on the site. The site entrances and points of access to Center Street and on Immersion Way have not changed. They're in the same location. They've been designed to accommodate tractor trailer truck traffic on the north end, as well as emergency vehicles and typical standard vehicles on the south end. So what I'd like to do is we have an extensive discussion about those different waiver requests in our narrative, and I encourage you all, if you haven't already, to take a look at that information, but I'd like to just simply provide a summary for that. So the first one is section 4D2, which is a waiver to allow two-way parking drive aisle to be reduced from 25 feet to 24 feet. As I noted, this was in something that was originally approved on the site plan. We have the double loaded parking on the southerly end of the site. The access around the dock appendage is 24 feet in accordance with that. And then we have the access around the perimeter as well at 24 feet. So we would respectfully request that waiver also be granted for this site. It allows a reduction in the impervious cover, gives us a little bit more breathing room for some green space, et cetera, on that site. The second one is section 4B1A, a waiver to allow a reduction in the separation between any street or driveway from another. The required separation is 90 feet. We had a fair amount of discussion about this when the project was originally approved. If you look at the site plan, I think Keith's image shows it as well. Directly to the north of the site, in that northwest corner, is the access to the Score Builder site, and they are right on their property corner as well. So we are radius to radius, we are touching at that point when it hits the drive lane on Center Street. The distance between the actual driveways is slightly more, about 20, let's see if I had it here. About 34 feet, I think, from drive aisle to drive aisle on that, but it's the radii because of the truck maneuver. In the southerly driveway, there is a curb cut on the opposite side of Center Street. It's a curb cut that goes into the loading area for the building that is on the opposite side of Center Street. And we are within that 90-foot distance radius to radius on that one as well. On the Dukas site, which is just below the project on the same side, their driveway's on the bottom end of their lot. So we've got appropriate separation distance on that one as well. So when we had the discussion about this last time, mathematically, there is no way to meet that 90-foot separation distance requirement radius to radius, given the existing curb cuts that are already on Center Street. There are no curb cuts immediately across from the site itself, but just because of the way that they're configured, we would have to have a waiver no matter what we did or where we did it on Center Street. So we do also respectfully request a waiver on that standard. Section 4B1E was the street or driveway within 10 feet of the side property line along that northerly edge. We are slightly below that. For the most part, it's around 9 feet, but when we are up near the dock appendage to get around that appendage, we are within about 5 feet. And as Keith mentioned, He's provided a plan to address buffering along that edge. Score Builders is on the north west corner, if you will, and the lot to the northeast is a vacant lot that has not yet been developed on Immersion Drive. So we are also requesting a waiver on that. The next waiver that we are requesting is section 4B1G, I think it's G, which is with regard to a request to have 2 curb cuts on Center Street. We went through quite a bit of discussion in our application materials about the different alternatives that we had discussed and reviewed, not only as part of the original design review, but also in the context of this particular site. So what we looked at was, what if we took away the one on the south side and had everybody come in and out on the north end? What that does on this particular site is it puts all the smaller vehicles, all the employee vehicles, and the trailer trucks all in and out at the north end of the building. It creates a dead-end parking on the south end of the building, which we would need to recoup parking spaces in order to accommodate that. It also would not allow us to have a full circulation around the site without that. So the next thing we looked at was, well, what if we made a loop internally within the site, kept one entrance on the north end? We looked at a few different alternatives with that. One is having the parking adjacent to the building, so vehicles would come in and they would face the front end of the building. We'd lose the green space on Center Street. In addition, we would have about 4 to 5 feet between the edge of pavement and the sidewalk on Center Street. The employees would be able to park and walk to the building, but physically you can't get a large vehicle around that maneuver. So people would try to short circuit that intersection, and an emergency vehicle would have to come fully into the oncoming lane on Central Street in order to do that. We looked at just the reverse. Okay, now what if we put the parking facing Center Street and put the drive aisle closer to the building? Well, that helps with the geometry of a vehicle coming in to the site, not a large vehicle, but a smaller vehicle. But then it puts every vehicle that is accessing that southerly side of the building within 10 feet of the face of the building. And every employee who has to park in that green space area has to cross that drive aisle in order to get into the building. So for that reason, the north end didn't provide us with any benefit. As a matter of fact, it increased congestion, in our opinion, and increased safety hazards as well. On the south side, we looked at the same thing. Can we eliminate that northerly entrance and put everybody in on the south end? Well, then what happens is we can't get the truck out of the westerly facing dock unless we do the whole thing again where we loop around the building. The same problems occur, except the geometry is even worse. So from a maneuvering standpoint, from a circulation standpoint, and a safety and congestion standpoint, we are respectfully requesting that those 2 curb cuts be allowed to be in place. We feel that it's a good separation. It provides appropriate access in logical separation of vehicles with different functions and uses on the site. So with all that, we are asking for a waiver on that as well. And under the provisions of that, the board does have the opportunity to allow a second means of access, provided that it does address congestion or safety hazards, and we feel that it does. So those are the 4 waivers in a very quick nutshell. There is a lot of information in the packets about those that we have prepared and provided for you. So with that, the only other 2 things that I would add is that we do have approval from the Portland Water District that I believe was already included in your packet. We also have approval from the Scarborough Sanitary District for the new site. That was something that came in subsequent to that scheduled meeting in February, but we do have it, and the town staff has it as well. We had addressed a comment that was made by Bill Bray's office about the building square footage and impact fees on traffic, and that has been updated. That has been provided for staff and for Mr. Bray's review as well. And the impact fees went up, I think, a little over $3,000 as a result of that change. But with that, we're all here to answer any questions that you have, and do appreciate your entertaining our new presentation.
Thank you, Nancy. This item is up for public review or public comment, I'm sorry. Anybody wishing to make a comment, please step up. Nobody? I'm wondering why. The Celtics are on, right? That said, I'm closing public comment and opening it up to the board. But before I do, Nancy, thank you very much for walking us through memory lane, so to speak, and kind of refreshing my mind on what had been proposed back several years ago. So that was helpful for me. But I'm looking at the board in no particular order, but Ben, you're first one with a hand up. Go for it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was gonna ask a lot about the three entrances, but you've explained that very well, so I appreciate that. Can you just point out for me where the two parking spots were and where they got moved to on that picture there, just so I understand?
So the picture doesn't show where they were.
Just aim the mic so that you can be heard. There you go. Thank you.
So there was a space here and a space here. Those have been eliminated, replaced with green, and the two went up there.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that makes more sense. You had a bunch of green there before on the main plans that I was looking at, which is fine, but I think it makes more sense that way. Okay. Yeah, I guess really my main concern, I said, was the entrances, but I kind of agree that, with the applicant that this kind of makes sense, from a safety consideration standpoint. So I guess that's all that I have for now. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben. Noah, you want to go?
Just one very minor question. I tried and I just couldn't figure it out. The building has a slope, right?
Correct, yes.
What direction does that slope face?
This elevation probably shows it. Oh, sorry about that. This elevation shows it the best, I would say. So it slopes to the north. So this is the north side of the site. That's the south side of the site. South side, north side.
So it's sloping down to the north. Okay. The spirit of my question was about, you've got this huge, flat, beautiful roof. And so the spirit of my thinking was to make use of that roof by making energy. But it sounds like if I'm reading that right, that's the opposite direction for where that would be of use. So, okay. Thanks.
Looking down here, anybody interested? All right, James, thanks for stepping up.
I appreciate your thoroughness and your report and your narrative, walking us through all the reasoning for this. So I appreciate that, Nancy. The only comment that I have is on the photometric plan thing, just to make sure that you include some either astronomical time clock connected to dimmers for your fixtures on site. And I know it does say this on your photometric plan, but just ensure that the tenant of the facility actually uses those dimming capabilities to dim the lights down during non-working hours at night, just to reduce lighting pollution. And that's it. No comments.
Thanks, James. Roger?
I really don't have much to say, although I congratulate you for finally coming through with something and getting this lot developed. And I think the traffic pattern that you described makes a lot of sense to me. And so I have no problem with the waivers. So looking forward to this moving forward.
Thank you.
Thank you, Roger. Jen?
I do remember the conversation about this site plan previously, and with the previous design, my recollection was that there was really physically like no way to circulate around the building. And I also kind of remember thinking that like but like something like this, you'd be able to circulate around the building easier. And so as others have said, I, appreciate the justification around the waiver requests. I'm still just kind of hung up on, I feel like you could probably do this with two driveways instead of the third. But I'm struggling because I know that the third, so the one I'm thinking that maybe makes the most sense to eliminate would be the southerly entrance on Center Street. However, I also understand that that's like closest to the front, sort of the front door of the building. So then I was trying to picture what it would look like mirrored. Certainly you have done all of these iterations already. But anyway, so I'm just voicing that, I know we had a lengthy conversation about it before. And I feel like the ask from 1 to 2 with the with warranted justification makes sense, but the fact that we're still at 3, but now have better and sort of more full circulation around the building is kind of tripping me up. And that's just where I'm at. I'm not sure that it's, I don't have an issue with the other waivers, although I think that one of them may be eliminated if you didn't have that. Is that right?
No.
The 3 entrance waiver, or 3
Right.
cuts would have been
Right.
eliminated.
If I could just add something, if it's appropriate for that. One of the things that I think is important to keep in mind is the fact that when we were looking at the L-shaped building, we really didn't know what was going to be happening on the site. And we envisioned that we would have an employee component and we'd have a loading and access component on the buildings. The difference is we now know that there's a tenant. We know what their operational needs are. And this particular tenant has more employee activities that are just outside the walls of the building, because those overhead doors, those at-grade doors are being loaded every single day. Every point of access, they're coming in and out with those. They're not going into the building, they're going to the building. So there are technicians, there are staff members who are getting in and out of trucks, et cetera, to get their daily activities all together and go to the different job sites, in addition to the employees who are going to be there. In my opinion, although I do understand, physically it's not an L-shaped building anymore, but because of the operational needs on the site and because of the extent of physical people who will be actively engaging at the face of the building, in the parking lot, at those parking spaces, et cetera, it really truly makes sense to me that that area is segregated so we don't have all the vehicles coming in that pinch point right where those docks are on that north side.
And are you talking specifically about the loading activity on the east end of the building, the short end?
There's loading on the east end and the south end.
Okay. And you're saying that there would be heavy pedestrian activity across that drive aisle to the south of the building? That's what you're talking about?
That's correct. They would be in and out with those trucks that are coming in and being loaded, the trucks that are on that east side as well.
Okay. I guess I was under the impression, and please correct me if I'm wrong on this, that the tray of parking to the south of the building was intended for zoom drain parking to the parcel below.
The one that is below sort of in that green area, that is for zoom drain. That's correct. The parking that is on the south end of the project site, which is a little bit closer to Center Street, is all for the activities with the building. So there's a green space that separates those two. You can't drive between the zoom drain site and this site anymore.
Okay. Okay, so the zoom drain parking is right there. That's currently in place, or it's in place, but you'd be dedicating an easement by way of this project?
It has not been built. So the zoom drain, on the zoom drain site right now, when you pull into the zoom drain building from Immersion Drive.
Mhm.
There's parking adjacent to the Zoom Drain building, the drive aisle, and then the property line.
Yep, okay.
So with the proposal, we would provide an easement benefiting Zoom Drain to allow parking on the north side of that drive aisle for the Zoom Drain site, but you can't connect between the two.
Okay. Would those trees conflict with that? That just jumped out at me.
Those trees would be removed as
Those
part
are
of
the
the
removal.
site
Okay,
plan.
all
and
right, sorry.
probably
Okay, and just
relocated.
last question, and again, apologies, 'cause I think you went over this at the beginning, but the context now makes it more relevant to me. The large trucking activity that you were talking about, tractor trailer trucks coming into the loading docks at the north side of the building, is that time restricted in any way, or time limited to a certain time of day, or is intended to be happening all day?
It happen whenever the
Okay,
delivery arrives. But that plan right there will keep those in the north end of the building.
right, okay. I guess so I support the other waivers. I'm still not, I'm not like 100% in support of the fourth waiver, but I know that that's not how we vote. So that's my 2 cents.
Thanks, Jen. I know we deliberated over this the first time we saw it with all of it, and we vetted it pretty good. And this layout seems to make a lot of sense. I just want to ask a couple of questions. I was looking inside. I didn't really see like any engineering spaces. Are we going to have any rooftop units on this building? Ventilation, HVAC? What do we got? How we doing all that fancy stuff?
Mr. Marciso?
Sam Marciso, 16 Ruby May Lane, Scarborough, representing Bentonova Holdings. We're not 100% sure on design yet. There will not be rooftop units on the roof, though. It's probably going to be heat pumps.
So you'll put those outside on the ground level?
I think on the back.
Backside, so we'd wanna make sure that you work with staff on plantings and stuff like that to.
Actually, yes, she's pointing to it right there.
There's a larger island there.
Yeah.
There was envisioned to have some mechanical space there.
What about with all the activity going on the employee side where you have the offices and everything like that? That's a pretty long line set that you'd be doing with heat pumps on that end. What's the consideration of outdoor units
Could be on the north side.
on the side where the trucks come in?
Yeah, I think you've got enough space there where you could put some right on the building.
Right on the
Smaller
building?
units,
Okay, yep.
smaller units.
All right. The reason why I ask is it's the way the slope of the building, it tends to make those ugly rooftop units look even uglier.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have. I do have a motion for this project. If everybody all set? Any other further comments?
The screening as part of the board.
I would prefer to make sure that at least they work with staff on any mechanical screening necessary. I know you don't. I know you don't. We weren't sure. Well, I'll send it to you via email. I move to approve the project title Lot 48 Innovation District proposed by Venevive Holdings LLC, and sorry if I murdered that name. The project is depicted in plan set prepared by St. Clair Associates dated 1/9/24. The application is approved with the following findings, waivers, and conditions. Findings. The project will include construction of a 19,280 square foot light industrial building and parking area in the Innovation District at the Downs. The planning board finds that the project meets the requirements of the site plan review and the zoning ordinances with the following waivers and conditions. Waivers. Number 1, section 4D2 to allow a reduction in the two-way parking aisle width from 25 to 24 feet. Number two, section 4B1, to allow the reduction of the minimum separation between street and or driveway accesses from other driveways. 90 feet is required based on the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit, and the driveway entrance on Center Street is proposed at 34 feet and 64 feet apart. Number three, section 4B1E, to allow a street or driveway access within 10 feet of a side of a property line. The northern driveway entrance are located 9 feet from the neighboring property lines due to the required width to accommodate trucks turning movements to the site. Waiver number four, section 4B1G, to have more than one full-service driveway connection. The site is proposed as 3 entrances, 2 on Center Street and 1 on Immersion Drive. Conditions: prior to the start of construction, the applicant shall schedule a pre-construction meeting. This meeting shall include appropriate town staff, the developer, and their site contractor, and is to be coordinated through the planning department. The below must be addressed prior to scheduling the pre-construction meeting. A, address the staff comments dated 6/17/24. B, address comments in the Haley Ward memo dated 1/29/24. C, address comments in the traffic solutions memo dated 2/3/24. Address planning board comments discussed at the 6/17/24 meeting. This includes updated photometrics plan to utilize a time clock and dimmers. This will ensure tenant use of dimmers to prevent light pollution at night. 2, any mechanical equipment for heat pumps or other systems shall be adequately screened. E, provide a final full plan set to the planning department. This shall include all site and civil plans, landscape plans, lighting plans, and architectural renderings and elevations. F, payment of all review fees and invoices. This shall be reviewed by the planning department. Number 2, use of the parking easement area on the abutting lot shall be prohibited until the Zoom drain site plan has been updated. Number 3, prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall A, pay impact fees in the amount to be determined. 4, prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy, the applicant shall A, request an inspection by the planning department to ensure compliance with this planning board approval. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, James. Doreen, would you take the roll?
Jennifer Led,
Yes.
Roger Beely,
Yes.
James Hebert,
Yes.
Rick Manking,
Yes.
and Noah Perla.
Yes.
Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you, Nancy, and your team, and look forward to having another active business working in the Innovation District.
Exactly.
Celtics up by 10. Thank you.
Oh, good. The whole package? Yeah. No, we didn't do that one.
All right, folks, one more action item for us is 4.07 New Gen Estates LLC 180-room hotel sketch plan review at 289 Payne Road. Eric, you want to give us some insight?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So New Gen Estates is in front of the board with a sketch plan for a hotel at the intersection of Payne Road and Higas Parkway. With the lot being about half wetlands, the applicant has located the building and the parking away from those wetlands, as well as included a buffer from that resource. For the site plan to be submitted, the traffic impacts and study will be required and need to include assessment of potential offsite improvements. Staff has provided a full review of the project for the board and applicant and is happy to answer any questions. So with that, I would turn it back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Eric. And for the applicant.
My name is Remington McDonald. I'm with Sebago Technics representing New Gen Estates. I am joined by Robert McSorley, who is also with Sebago Technics. So we're proposing, it is a 6-acre lot. We're proposing to develop about half of it, about 3 we're gonna do 3 acres of developed area and 2 acres of impervious area. One note of the layout is we are showing 180 parking spaces in this layout. But we are required to go down to 160 since 160 is the number of, rooms that we are currently, trying to get. We had a staff meeting back in, January. And so and they made a few comments, and some of the comments were, sorry if I'm not talking in the mic enough. So some of the comments were to move the building closer to the front to Payne Road and put the parking in the back. And then they requested to show a sidewalk, so we have an easement here along Payne Road, shown for a future sidewalk. And then the final comment was the access to the parcel and show. Nope, I think that was it. Yeah, we're planning on handling stormwater with some underground chambers. And as has been stated, we'll have to look at the traffic as well. They'll do a full traffic assessment. I believe at 160 rooms, TMP is warranted. But that'll be something that comes with the process that goes through that, so. Yeah.
That's it?
Yeah.
Okay, I like it, short and sweet. All right, this item is open for public comment. There's nobody out there. Anybody? All right, we're done with that. So with that, I'm gonna remind the board here that this is just a sketch plan. And we'll definitely be seeing it again, and we all have the staff comments that have been made, and they've already started a pretty thorough review, but are there anything that you wish to bring up to the applicant for their consideration as they begin to put their site plan together? And I won't go into any particular order, but James, you look hot to trot. Go for it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate you noting that there will be a sidewalk in front of the building on Payne Road side. I think in general, this particular area with Haggis, the Downs, everything, having more sidewalks here is going to be really, really critical, especially if folks here that are staying here are going to want someplace nice to walk to. Secondly, you're building out to your absolute maximum build out to right up to the 25-foot wetland setback. And while that is absolutely right, I would like to just caution, you do have some landscaping on this property, but I want to see more extensive landscaping. Like when we get to that point, I want to see lots of shade trees surrounding the entire property instead of just evergreens. One thing that's important to note as a lot of these treed areas and wooded areas are developed, that may not be proper trees, a lot of dogwoods and small things like that, but they do provide a significant amount of shade, and that provides a significant amount of cooling in this space. And remembering that we're basically flattening all this and putting a lot of asphalt in. So I would like to see special consideration and density paid attention toward providing more shade tree coverage throughout this entire area, and really along maybe not necessarily the Payne Road boundary, because you do want to somewhat advertise your structure, but along the abutting property to your south, Plainview South. I would like to see I just want to see an entire wall there of trees, and really more for trying to help replant a lot of this vegetation on the property, but also provide a level of privacy for your folks who are going to be staying there. One question I have, this is being shared with us as a hotel. Is there any consideration in the future for this to be converted into long-term housing, or can it be? I guess I'm not asking for it to be, but I'm asking, if seeing what happened in the city of Portland, where it started as one and ended up something else. What are we looking at here?
Yeah, so I haven't spoken with the client about that, but Rob can maybe answer that question.
I represent New Gen Corporation. They have several different properties within the South Portland area. They're also branching out, and they have a proposed project in Wyndham. The properties that they have, they own and manage as hotel facilities. They have 4 in South Portland, and we are currently looking at possibly another one in South Portland in addition to this one. So the intent is for it to stay as a commercial establishment.
Hotel.
Hotel.
Okay, thank
Hotel,
you.
Commercial stuff. Yeah.
Appreciate that. That's all I have for now, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks.
If I could say about the green space, we are actively working with this parking lot. Some of the staff comments involve some sidewalk and some rules about how far you can go with the parking with the sidewalk. So we are working to amend this plan to include that sidewalk, and then certainly more trees is something we can look at. And then for specifically the rear close to the wetland, we're really looking at that with the amount of parking, because as I said, we're showing about 20 more spaces than is required currently. So we're looking at taking that off the back. And then the only spot where it gets really tight shown in this layout would be this area of coming around, accessing around the back. It gets pretty close to that wetland setback.
Thank you. Roger.
Thank you. I have a question regarding protocol directed towards Eric, I guess. When a client or a prospect comes before the planning department, do they go over the previous plans that this site had? I mean, the planning board had extensive conversations about this site before.
Yeah, so I believe I was not here when that site plan was reviewed, but what I believe you're referencing is the potential for a signal. Well, I mean, there is going to be a signal eventually at Ginn Road, but potentially what the applicant might have to do in terms of off-site improvements.
I was thinking of that, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, there's quite a bit of wetlands back there.
Yes, so we did take that into account. The applicant team did mention they met with us in January for a pre-application meeting. So we did kind of work with them to avoid all those wetlands on the rear half of the property. And then, we've also let them know that whatever comes up in terms of the traffic impact study come site plan review would have to either be installed or if there's in lieu fees, but I mean, kind of dealing with that at that time.
Okay, good. And then on your staff comments, number 3, you said there's appears to be a proposed connection to the Patriot Acura dealership. I don't see where that is on here.
Plans out.
It's where?
I'll try.
Plans
Ooh.
out.
Plans.
I just made it not visible because oh, there we go, right here. So it's essentially paving right up to the property line.
Oh, okay. All right. No, I guess I quite, just a general question to the applicant. I'm assuming you do market research for these hotels.
Oh, yes, yeah.
And, I mean, I can think of 4 that are.
Banks and hotels are what going up.
Never mind what else is going on everywhere else, so.
Yeah, they're well aware, and he does do research of what's appropriate in what area. This is an excellent opportunity here because of the connection, near connection to the turnpike.
Yeah.
And some of the other resources, you're going to have the build out of the downs and whatnot. And this is an excellent location compared to the stuff out over by the mall. I think that's a different use, and they're looking at in South Portland, redeveloping that as a regional area for, tourism and activities and whatnot. So,
Okay.
Yep.
That's all.
That's all. Thanks, Roger. Jen, you want to go?
Yeah, my first question was if you had any sense for where you were going to be taking the 20 spaces from, but you sort of answered that by saying generally along that back, the back edge of the parking area close to the wetland. This is a tricky site, right? right? Because it's a triangle and you're putting in a bunch of squares. And so I think that it would be great to see some of that as you reconfigure the parking, which you'll presumably do this anyway, but use some of those dead areas, for lack of a better term, to help fulfill some of the requests for additional landscaping. And I think that would, I think in that way, actually, the site kind of lends itself pretty well to having some more planting areas. I'm curious, and you don't need to answer now, but in future submissions, curious about the inclusion of the one-way out onto Payne Road, and would just hope to see some additional information there about why we feel like that's necessary. I'm curious about the lack of circulation around the sort of the fourth side of the building. This seems like a pretty significant structure, and I'm just curious if has been or will be conversations with the fire department about that.
Yep, they commented on it during the staff meeting. They didn't have a particular concern on that. They do want us to make sure that they can route the fire truck through the entire parking lot.
Mhm.
And they also have mentioned that they don't want the EV units up next to the building. Apparently, that's been an issue with them catching fire and being so much near a structure and whatnot. So wherever we're going to kind of push them away from the building a little bit.
Okay. I've heard that too. I guess just lastly, I think this kind of use in this location would, if I put my Rachel hat on for a moment, it would really lend itself to having one or maybe two great outdoor spaces. So I don't know, like a little patio or, certainly benches or just somewhere that you could sit outdoors if you're staying here. Oh, actually, which reminds me, another question. I'm curious if a hotel of this size would include any type of food use or restaurant or sort of resident only food service, and what that might look like for waste and deliveries.
Right now, the interior footprint is interior only for residents and whatnot.
Mhm.
It's not considered or intended to be a full service restaurant as part of it.
Okay. I think that's all that I have. Thanks.
Thanks, Jen. Noah?
Hi there. You mentioned, well, I guess my first question is, including the image as it's currently drawn, I know you said it's going to decrease by 20 parking units, but are there any current wetland impacts directly?
No, we have kept everything this side of the buffer. And in fact, we're probably going to lose a little bit of the parking along the edge so that we don't have the need for any type of wall or something. Remy did point out the one area up towards the corner of the building. That will probably be a segmental retaining wall that's adjacent to the buffer. But there's no proposed wetlands impacts back there. There is some wetlands up in the front here along Payne Road. And we do anticipate a little bit of impact on that. Not only that, because the city or the town, I should know it's a town because I live here. The sidewalk that's proposed there goes right through that wetland area. So there will be some wetland impacts.
Okay.
But other than that, staying out of the wetlands.
Okay, so two follow-up questions about that. And the first one is perhaps completely insane, so you'll just have to humor me a little bit. Have you considered rotating the orientation of the building so the long flat side faces the Acura dealership?
We looked at several configurations. The first configuration actually had the building all the way up against the wetland and whatnot. And during that meeting that we had, staff recommended that it be pulled to the front with the parking in the back. Relative to turning it the other way, it's not a very good presentation based upon the product. You're going to have a very small section of building, and then you're going to have this big parking lot on the side, which you want us to put in the back. So
Yep, okay.
we probably wouldn't.
Understood. Just, the spirit of my suggestion was simply about, that would allow you to really further creep away from you could move the road entrance further away from what you were just talking about from mitigation. So I understand the town's perspective about, excuse me, shielding the parking area with the building. Do you know who the adjacent property owner is to the, I don't know if this is north, if this, is this a north-south facing image here?
Yeah, that's basically north.
Do you know who the northbound property owner is?
Not sure if that's part of the downs, isn't it?
It's the downs.
Yeah, and I believe that area is all wetland. It connects to the wetland that's part of our property there.
Okay, so that being said, I'd encourage you to consider having a conversation with the Scarborough Land Trust to see if the remaining half of this parcel is, which you're saying is effectively undevelopable because it's all wetlands, if they would be willing to take over it in a conservation easement.
We're more than happy to consider that.
Have that conversation with the land trust. Thank you. That's all I have. Thank you.
That's great, Noah. Thanks. Ben?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think a lot of stuff's been covered. I guess I'm still a little confused. I've heard a few different numbers thrown about the parking spaces. Your requirement is one per room, right?
Yes.
Is the number of rooms fixed already? Are you sure? Because this is 168. I've heard
160.
160 is the actual.
160 is the
Okay.
latest number. So
So you
sorry
could-
about the confusion.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine. I've
And,
been hearing different numbers than I've been seeing, so
yeah,
you're dropping,
we won't be, right now, we've been told not more than 160.
okay,
And we kind of maxed out the parking. We're gonna peel that back a little bit, loose a little bit along the wetlands, as I said, and, we'll look at some of the landscaping back there too.
yeah, I guess I would encourage you, maybe along the lines of what Jen was saying, to look at some more outdoor spaces if you can, when you have some parking spaces being removed, if you could add a little area for some people to gather or something,
Mhm.
might be, more attractive and or more landscaping in the back, which I know you're already gonna be looking at. That's really all that I have at this time, so, thanks.
Thanks, Ben. I don't have a lot. I got a couple of questions. How many stories is this?
5,
5 stories?
I believe it's 5.
Okay.
I remember my calculations the last time I did them.
So I would my druthers would be that you really invest in some landscaping up front and really kind of shield from the Payne Road and kind of get that to be, offset some of this big, massive building that's going to be there. 6 stories is pretty high. And a nice, robust entry landscape would kind of make that an easier flow on the eyes, having some well-established trees. Also, you probably heard me from the last one on mechanical systems on roofs and stuff like that. But I will tell you that here in Maine, we're really trying to lower the use of fossil fuels, and would ask that you really consider using a more electrification of the building rather than using fossil fuels. Go ahead.
Can I comment on that?
You can comment on that.
My client is very conscious relative to the environment and whatnot. Most of his facilities that he's got right now have solar on them. He's actually in the middle of finishing up a solar project in Augusta to take care of his entire inventory of facilities. So very, trying to get away from the fossil fuel type stuff.
Great. Put solar on there and then run everything that's electric, and you've got a well minimal carbon impacts because of that. So I would applaud any effort that you would do towards that.
Yep.
Do you have any questions for us?
In general, we think it's a good project for this area of Scarborough and whatnot. We just wanted to make sure that we got a feeling from you that, this is something that the planning board sees as appropriate here. With your guidance, look at some of the things that you specifically spelled out here, that it's a good project, that you believe that it's good to move forward on.
We'll see when you bring us the site plan and show us the renditions and all of that. But more importantly, it's about working with the planning department and meeting the ordinances that we have, because we've been working hard over the years to get these ordinances so that they're less, there's a little less wiggle room. It's more thou shall do that or thou shall not come here. So just work with the staff. I think you'll find them very helpful. And I would really also encourage the conversation with the land trust, because that's a lot of land out there that would be nice to add to the portfolio of our attempts to conserve land here in Scarborough.
We agree.
All right?
Yep.
Anybody have anything else? Seeing none, we'll see you again.
Thank you very much.
All right. Good luck.
Thank you.
All right. We have, next subject is 5.01 minor development reviews.
None at this time.
How about 502 administrative amendment report?
Yep, the only one we have is Galinas HVAC at 224 Gorham Road to change their retaining wall in front of the building and their bio retention cell stormwater. So that was approved last week and all set.
All right. 6.01 correspondence.
I did have a staff report real quickly. I know it's kind of mixed up on the agenda.
Oh,
If you wouldn't mind.
no, go.
So in terms of building permits and start of construction, Liveaway Hotel at 83 Muzzy is going to get going here in the next week or so. Marsh Bend at 48 Pine Point has already started clearing. I don't know if any of you have driven by on Pine Point.
Yeah, I think
So,
you did.
In terms of projects that are nearing completion or certificates of occupancy, 70 Higas, which I believe was approved in 2019.
Wow.
Is finally nearing, it has its occupancy permit.
That was, yeah, that
Yeah.
was,
Mr. Anderson.
Anderson. Yeah, yeah.
Main Vet, their parking expansion along Technology Way. We are going to be inspecting that next week. Mercedes-Benz will also be inspected next week for their building addition after the contract zone was updated. And then finally, I have Bailey's Seafood, which I think Autumn can provide an update where they are as of June 15th.
Bit of a unique approval at our last meeting, where they had some things to do by June 15th, and so I went out there today, been working with them. If you go by, they put up a new fence behind the picnic area, they've taken out the pipes that were sticking up, they've replaced the dead arborvitae, and I've had them plant 7 deciduous trees in that sort of triangular field. They restriped, they removed the wall pack lights, they've ordered new ones, they aren't installed yet, but they've ordered them. I've informed them not to turn on the other lights, not to plug anything in the picnic tables. So I think that's what. So
Excellent.
she has a CO inspection on Thursday, so she's. Oh, and they also included moving the poles.
Fronts. So they're in good shape.
So in conclusion, they're
In
meeting their June
conclusion,
15th deadline agenda items.
Hopefully the neighbors will be a bit happier and all will be well, and they will, part of the approval is for them to finish some other site, plan changes and come back. It's written as staff review. We're always able to bring something back to the board if we think it might be fit, or if you all decide you want to see it. We usually run it by the chair.
But depending on the changes, so you may see it again.
Thanks.
And then just kind of wrapping up, Intermed withdrew its sketch plan, obviously, and has submitted the site plan for the July meeting, so you guys will see that next month. And then Costco did submit a garden center site plan application to have a fenced-in little area to sell some plants in the existing parking area on that, I guess it's the building side where the door is to the left of the entrance. But that has been withdrawn and now they're using indoor storage instead. So that's withdrawn. And then the next meeting is Monday, July 15th. So that's all I have.
We have one more, don't we have
I
a
one
meeting
more
next
thing
week?
To add, so you all have a joint meeting with council on June 25th at 7. And I'm going to send you the packet tomorrow. It's a hotel and I did not want to send it to you with this hotel sketch plan tonight. But it's a hotel proposal at the Cabela's site. The site plan is very conceptual, if you will. And so there's a lot of work to be done on it, but it is an allowed use in the Highest Parkway District. So that meeting's coming up.
So do you have packets of it ready?
No, I'm gonna email them to you tomorrow.
Okay.
There's nothing, it's not a paper packet. It's just 8.5 by 11 sheets. So.
Thank you. All right, I guess we're at
Sorry.
planning board.
Wait, Can I ask one quick follow-up question about
Yep.
Costco? About 2 or 3 months ago, we had during this period, we had a vigorous conversation about Costco and EV chargers. Is there any update from the planning department about that?
Absolutely not. We just have a performance guarantee in place for the conduit that they're on the hook for installing. And we don't have any updates.
Okay, thanks.
And we also have a subdivision plan for the board to sign as well. So please sign that before you leave if you haven't.
You've already signed it, Roger. You and I signed it. Sorry.
March 10th, yeah.
All right, planning board comments. All right, everybody, go ahead.
I just got a quick, maybe it's a question or a comment. I'm seeing the news that John's is planning to reopen by June 15th, which is 2 days ago. Do they have to go through site plan review or anything? Because it's been so long since they've been open?
Yes, so Ann John's is not going to be opening. They actually exceeded their 12-month period of not being open, so they're non-conforming use. So they have to go to the zoning board of appeals for a decision. But before that, you all will see them as an advisory opinion on your next meeting. They, in that packet of information, you will also see that they have it on board. They have basically their own sewer system there, which is a bit unique to the site. And so you will see some of those reports and some recommendations concerning that as well.
Thanks.
You asked for the info. You got it now.
I was curious. Now I know what's going on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Anybody else? Seeing none, let's just remember, kind of hold Rachel's in your thoughts as she recovers from pneumonia. And with that, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We have it. All in favor?
Aye.
Let's do it.